In the world of Aora, souls live, die, and are reborn through the turning of the wheel, and this poor soul was born an unknown godlike. He may be a fun guy, but he was beaten and mocked as a child, so he grew up scrappy. Having not been claimed by his patron god and having been abandoned by his parents, Tain was always desperate for approval, a natural people pleaser, and a natural soldier. His prowess and godlike nature brought the attention of the Emperor himself, and now Cap has been tasked as an envoy, a representative of the Emperor of Adir, to the living lands where the Empire hopes to expand. But a ravaging soul plague is making things more difficult. Cap has one objective: to please the Emperor. To do so, he'll have to discover the source of the Dream Scourge and either conquer or ally himself with the people of the living lands. Can he do it? Can he do it with nothing but the power of personality and his fists? There's only one way to find out. Here are the rules for the run. Number 1, Cap can only hit enemies with his fists, his godlike powers, and maybe a shield. No weapons, no damaging magic spells from grimoires or the wizard or ranger skill trees, no damaging grenades. He's gonna have to punch or talk his way to victory in these lands. Number 2, the difficulty will be set to Path of the Damned and cannot be changed. Number 3, we might find new rules along the way. That's all I can think of for now. Welcome back to Creative Excuses. Now let's find out if Tain can punch his way through the living lands. And his boat crashed. Already. Worse, Cap's ship was wrecked by cannons, and now he's stranded on a beach with the only other surviving person from the ship. Lucky us. We pick up a spear and use it to break through this barrier, and then put that garbage away because all Cap needs is his fists and maybe a shield. Nope, not a shield. Punch faster equals die less if the second fight is anything to go by. Maybe a shield will get more useful in the future, but for now, fighting with 2 fists, floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee is the way to go. On the way off this island, our hero met this woman, a smuggler from Paradise, the city Cap is also headed to. She seems like a sketchy character, but everyone here is dead. There are lizard folk running around, and she says she has a boat to get us off the island and can lead us there. The people pleaser he is, Cap frees her against his blue friend's judgment. Along the way to Alora's boat, though, Cap and crew ran into the last Adiran soldier standing. He looked healthy enough, and pretty massive, honestly, but he was spouting gibberish, maybe because of the Dream Scourge, the soul plague on the living lands. Our people pleaser tried to talk him down, unsuccessfully, which meant going blow for blow with this beast of a man at a health bar. After a few minutes floating around, dodging and weaving and bopping, we managed to take him down and put him out of his misery. Maybe the next turn around the wheel will be better for him. With the smuggler's boat just around the corner from the poor captain, the small crew set sail for Paradise once more, landing at the docks and hoping for a diplomat's welcome.
Hey! Turn around and sail back to wherever you came from. This dock is reserved for the Imperial envoy. And he's late. Probably died at sea. Good riddance.
And what a welcome it was. This person didn't even recognize Cap with the coral flakes blooming out of his face. Oh well, Big Blue Scales over here wants to tag along while we search for the ambassador of Adir and the Clavager, the leader of this nice little city, Paradise. They've run off to investigate the rumors of a plague together at a place called Strangleroot. Cap still needs to recover a bit after that wreck though, so off our hero goes to explore the town and surrounding area in search of experience. A place called Strangleroot is going to need a little bit more than these early game fists to take on, I think. Not even half a minute into exploring, Cap met a young lady who needed her house cleared out of Zarops, the little dinosaur barbarian people. Always eager to help, our hero jumped in, took a quick swim, climbed a cliff, and then punched and charged his way through several Zarops, knocking them off their feet and then cleaning them up with a few punches. Sending them flying is a lot of fun. After clearing the Zarops and meeting a friendly one, we discovered that the charming lady was only half of a soul, and that the friendly Zarop that we met is somehow the other half? That's pretty sick and pretty sad. I don't know, she seemed pretty sad about it, but man, half of your soul is a dinosaur. I know some kids that would kill for that. On the way to the Zarops though, we found this note tacked to a doorframe from a guard or trainer, not really sure which, asking for a fight in her arena. We accepted the challenge, of course, and proceeded to punch this little dwarf lady soldier in the face over and over like a real man. With a new level in hand and a new ability called Constant Recovery, which let us regenerate half of the damage taken from the previous attack that landed on us, Cap is off to find more experience. We cleared out a farmhouse, punched a bear to death, found a hazing victim, which was pretty sad, and circled the perimeter of Paradise, checking for bandits and Zarops along the way, clearing them out when we found some. The guards here suck. They really need to clear this place out. We did see this spider cave that looks a little bit dangerous though. We'll probably come back here another time and see if there's a giant spider in there to crush with our bare hands. Somewhere along the perimeter of the city, we snagged our next level up to level 4 and took another ability. This time evasive, which reduces our dodge cost by 25%. This is going to make our stamina management much better, letting us dish out more damage and take less at the same time, assuming we can dodge or block with the right timing. We also put another point into resolve, which puts us up to 6 after putting all of our points into it thus far. That gives us a big stamina pool to work with, which is very important for swinging our fists around like a maniac. After a little more exploring, Cap stumbled upon a few major upgrades. The first was a piece of this god totem, a unique set of collectible camp buffs that you can find in the first zone. This one is a piece from the shrine to Wotica, the god of the Adirans, among other things. This particular piece of the shrine grants 2 extra resolve and 2 intellect, pushing our total resolve up to 8 and our intellect up to 2 after we placed the piece along with the shrine in our camp. These are massive buffs this early and will really help with casting charge often, blocking, dodging, and punching. The second major upgrade was this unique armor, which will cast Barbaric Shout for us if we take 30% of our health as damage at one time. Given we have very little health, this is very possible and will buff our ability to stun enemies quite substantially. The groin piece on the armor, on the other hand, is a little uncomfortable though. The third major upgrade were these gloves at the Shrine to Wotica that grant an additional 20 essence. That is 1 extra cast of charge that I can hold on to with a full bar of essence, which is awesome. Much better than a measly 1% crit chance. After a quick night's sleep and a nice chat with Kai about the living lands and the challenges of serving a military and government that you may not always approve of, Cap is ready for the next day. We heard about a shanty town yesterday, so maybe we're going to check it out there next. On the brief swim over to the shanty town, we found this little hidden sewer filled with ghosts. And somehow, we punched the dead things to death again, blew up this barely visible barrel with a grenade to unlock this door, and we got some unique boots that will slowly heal us while walking. They don't seem to work though, I can't really tell. Maybe they only work in combat, maybe they only work when walking really slowly, which I can't do with a keyboard. I don't know, but they match the armor and they look great, so that's neat. In the shantytown itself, we found this angry former pirate who is just so upset with some seagulls that stole his shiny things. He asked us to find his shiny things, which we did with some stylish parkour, and he rewarded us with a necklace that I forgot to even look at, though I did eventually equip it. Along the way, we healed this guy's new blindness with an herb that we found earlier by coincidence and agreed to get them documents proving they bought property in a city or town called Thirdborn, somewhere else on the island. They seemed down on their luck, so Cap agreed to help. Soon after though, Cap found himself in a brutal fight against some big nasty spiders and a few bandits that seem allied with the spiders. I don't know, but this bandit with a wand almost wrecked Cap's crap, but it was still nothing a few 1-2 punches to the face couldn't solve. The reward for this tough fight was another glove upgrade, this time to the Steel Garrote gloves, which grant 20 extra stamina, even better than the Essence gloves. Given that a single point of resolve gives less than 5 stamina, this is a huge boost and might stay on for quite a long time. Still in search of more experience before heading to the Strangle route, we remembered some bandits back by that nice lady with half a soul's house, so we cleared them out. Then we found some more dinosaur people and took a few of them out, but after all of that, we were still only level 4 with another 500 XP to go, while these kills were only giving a pittance of experience. The Strangle route was right there though, so our hero decided it had been long enough. Any more time to recover and remember his skills would put the Clavager and the Ambassador in too much danger. Cap charged forward, beating the hell out of some bears along the way, only to find out he was already too late. The Clavager was dead, and the Ambassador was a little chicken hiding from the big boss. We had to take out this big bear before the Ambassador would talk to us though, because he was quaking in his boots, so we charged into battle. We punched, we dodged, we got smacked and screamed in fury thanks to our armor, we punched some more, then we threw a haymaker uppercut again, and then a flurry of blows so fast the bear couldn't even react. Then we did that like 6 more times, charging and stunning and punching and getting punched and stunning and punching and charging, completely forgetting that we had some food buffs that would have been really useful and raised our damage. And then Cap beat the bear with the mushrooms on his face with his bare hands and earned his rightful level 5. At level 5, our hero took his first major damage buff in the form of Finesse, which boosts one-handed weapon damage by 25%. If Reddit is to be believed, which maybe it shouldn't be, our fists count as one-handed weapons, and so we're going to deal a lot more damage now. More specifically, 25% more damage. For our attribute point, we dropped this one into Dexterity. Thanks to Wodica's Totem, we have 8 Resolve, which puts us well into diminishing returns territory with that attribute, and so dexterity is going to be quite useful, increasing our attack speed to make our punches all the more furious. Resolve and dexterity are going to be our main focuses throughout this build so that we can attack as much as possible, as often as possible. Out of embarrassment though, we haven't really mentioned this yet, but Cap has been hearing voices for a while. Specifically a female sounding voice saying some crazy stuff ever since he arrived in the Living Lands. The latest crazy thing is to meet this voice at the giant Adra stone, a source and conduit of essence, souls, and magical power. The voice in the Adra told me that I felt familiar and that they were trapped before trying to bribe me with the power to heal and be healed. But voices in heads feel like poor demons to make a deal with, so Cap's suspicion won out and he rejected the gift. The voice wasn't happy about this, taking it as scorn, but Cap isn't committed one way or the other just yet. After chatting with the Adra, the invasive growth dissolved, and the ambassador told our hero to meet him at the embassy in Paradise for further talks. Rejecting the voice's power was not without benefit though, granting us another ability point to spend. We chose to drop this point into a second rank of constant recovery so that we now generate 75% of the damage that we took over 12 seconds. That is going to go a long way towards sustaining us in fights. On the way back to Paradise to meet the ambassador, we roughed up a few ghosts, we found some new boots in an old dwarven cache, we took a well-earned nap, and then almost got robbed because we're just a fun guy. Thankfully, staring into the distance, haunted by our past, convinced one of the muggers to quit his life of crime though, but we did have to punch the poor lady in the teeth. Oh, and Kai said this.
And I've got the solution tucked in my sheath.
Unless you're hearing that from a handsome stranger in the bathhouse, that's usually an invitation to trouble. And not as fun as the kind you get into in the steam.
Get it, Kai. A few steps later, we walk into Paradise for the first time, excited to see the city, except someone in the city isn't nearly as excited to see our hero, and Cap is immediately shot with an arrow out of nowhere. And I think we see our soul. I think we just died. While starting our trip around the wheel, we are interrupted by this glowing body and the voice that tells us that we are in the home of the gods, in the beyond. The voice tells us that we are theirs and they tend to us. Does that mean that this could be our god? Are we this voice's godlike? Regardless, the voice uses their power to return us to life somehow, but asks us to find and free them. Cap doesn't know who they are, but with a favor like that, there might be a reason to give this voice in the head a bigger chance. Perhaps no more rejecting gifts. After waking up from death, we have a new plan. Investigate our own murder and find a watcher who can help us learn what the heck just happened. But first, our job. The ambassador is still waiting and there is no reason to make more enemies right now. On the way through town, we did a little more shopping for some upgrade materials and picked up some bounties to hunt down for some extra coin. We also nipped upstairs and picked up the property deed for that couple out in the shanties from a dead body. No clue why he was dead, but he was. Right before chatting with the ambassador though, our spider sense went off and we hunted down some spiders and then explored a little. We found a vantage point up here overlooking the square where we were shot and found the poison and a spare arrow from our assassin. But we can't identify what it is. We're gonna need some help with that soon. Cap then spoke to the ambassador, got into a bar fight to recruit a dwarf tracker, and confirmed our suspicions about the poison and arrow on the balcony, which earned us level 6. With our new level, we took the first rank in Iron Fist, which upgrades our fist to fine quality, which is required to take on all of the rest of the enemies in Dawnshore. We also put a point into our might attribute, giving us just a tad bit more damage. We should be absolutely rocking enemies' worlds now with our punches, which means it is the perfect time to visit the Sparrowhawk infested region of Paradise where the apothecary is. Maybe they'll know about the poison used to murder our hero. Turns out, the apothecary did know some helpful information, and we did make a new friend, but not until after we whacked and walloped and killed the ogre leader of the Sparrowhawks with our new Iron Fists. The fight was easy enough with a dodge here and there to avoid the massive club the ogre was carrying, and to avoid his area of effect ground slam ability especially. But with some well-timed charges, some furious fists of fury, and one final uppercut to his massive chin, we took him down. Now to clean up the rest of the Sparrowhawks and free this section of the city from a violent and oppressive gang. The first few fights to clean up the streets went well, but this little pointy-eared rogue got the better of me. But a second attempt brought better results, and the Sparrowhawks are no more. Cap earned a good night's sleep after dying and then rising and then cleaning up the streets of Paradise all on his own, but Kai had an interesting question.
Do you think there's a way to bring people back from the dead?
I don't think so, and here's why. Cap came back from the dead because his journey around the wheel was interrupted by the glowing being, right? Maybe a god of some sort? But if Cap had gone through and been reincarnated, then to pull him back from the dead, in quotes, his soul would have had to have been pulled out of another body and put back into this one. It would have to kill that other person, wouldn't it? And that's most likely a child. That's awful. I don't know, food for thought. And also, like, stuff happened in Deadfire that may affect this even more, but neither I nor Cap were there for that, and it was only like 2 years ago, so who knows. After a night's sleep, Cap decided to deliver the property documents to that couple in the shantytown and collect a bounty nearby at the same time. The document delivery was easy enough, but the couple asked for a little additional help because they were being extorted by their smugglers after the deal was already made. Being a nice guy, Cap overlooked the Adirans being on the run as they'd already been for several years, and they didn't seem to be hurting anyone. He offered to deal with the smugglers. Nearby, our hero took on his first bounty hunt. He approached the isle the captain was on from an odd angle, swimming through the mostly shallow waters to reach her. Leading with an attempted stealthy charge, Cap went after the captain's goons first, who were all easy enough to take down with a mixture of charges, punches, and commands for Kai to blast them with his pistol. Throughout this, the captain kept taking pot shots at Cap though, and many landed, requiring a few healing potions and retreats around the rock corner. Once all the goons were dealt with though, we turned our full attention to the bounty and charged, closing the distance to get a few good whacks in. Every time the captain got a shot in though, we had to retreat a little to heal, and then charge back in to stagger and interrupt her to get a few more jabs in before she shot us again. No more than a minute or two later, the captain was dead, and her bounty proof was in hand. With one bounty in hand, Cap cleared a few nearby islands of some giant bugs, found a little bit of treasure, and then went cliff diving to approach the smugglers from the water just like he had the captain. Only this time, thanks to saving Alora back on the island, these smugglers aren't hostile, and we get them to honor their original deal and even better.
Fine. Tell your miserable countrymen the deal is settled. Free of charge. We'll take them to Thirdborn when they're ready.
Which I guess isn't the original deal, but oh well, that's still great news. Nearby the smugglers was a cave full of spiders. Emphasis on the was though, and that encounter inspired Cap to seek out a second bounty for the day, a giant spider named Nasib. He remembered that giant hole in the ground at the base of Paradise from his earlier exploration of Dawnshore, and sure enough, in that cave was the giant spider. Clearing out the small and medium spiders was easy enough. A swig of grog granted him 70% resistance to poison damage, which is most of what the spiders deal in, and they were a little lower level, so they only took a few punches to take down, which felt really satisfying. Just absolutely squashing bugs left and right. But then, the big bug came out. Turns out though, the bigger they are, the easier they fall in this case. After less than a minute of punching and charging and dodging, Nasib was down too without any issue. I don't think Cap took a single hit from the giant spider.
So they finally sent one of their bootlickers to talk.
On his way to turn in the bounties, Cap was assaulted by some local angry Paradisans and some rebels just hanging out in the streets. They all went down pretty easily, but murder in the streets does feel bad. Finally, though, it was time to enter the uppity part of the city. Our hero immediately sought out the so-called fraud of a watcher and determined that she was indeed a fraud. Worse than that, though, he got absolutely slapped twice in a row by a set of rebels and then some bandits. One tough fight later to clear out the bandits sacking the late Claviger's house, and Cap found himself searching through what the bandits left. An important and apparently secret journal entry from the Claviger himself revealed that the Claviger was secretly supporting the rebels, and it conveniently revealed the rebels' location, the Temple of Andra. Finishing the investigation granted enough experience to hit level 7, and with our new ability point, we learned Shield Bash to finally become the Cap Tain we were always meant to be. Hopefully with this new ability, we'll be able to stun some of these tougher enemies pretty quick to rock some big combos quite often. Maybe blocking will help us deal with a few more of the incoming attacks too in these higher pressure fights. We put our attribute point into dexterity to add a little more attack speed, given that we're getting rid of our second fist as well. Before he wanted to venture to the temple though, Cap decided it'd be a good idea to pick up a few more health potions, let the cartographer know about his late apprentice that we found earlier, and do some last minute upgrades to his armor, pushing it up to fine quality and hopefully making it good enough to take a hit against whatever these rebels can throw at him this time. With 9 health potions, 10 essence potions, a smattering of food, and a whole bar of alcohol in his pocket, Cap headed for the temple and a showdown with his would-be assassin. At the temple, Cap met another young lady. This one a priestess and a rebel. She dropped the act pretty quickly and told Cap everything he wanted to know without any fuss really. It was a little too easy. She even revealed Cap's killer was Eagwolf, a master archer, But she was helpful and non-violent despite the 2 daggers on her hips, so Cap told her to leave the city. Better to make a friend here than kill a woman in the temple at the city center. It didn't hurt that she was upset at Adir and the Steel Garrote way more than our hero, and not for no reason. Cap found himself a little sympathetic to the cause. Down below the temple in the cistern were a bunch of rebels. Cap tried to sneak by, but without any luck, fighting them to their death. The new shield bash was a pretty solid boon, allowing for easy knockback and stagger, and adding a significant amount of stun. While exploring the cistern looking for the assassin Eagwolf, Cap found a strange journal entry signed, "Forgive me, Tain." That was strange, and seemed to say that Eagwolf had remorse for the murder. Interesting. A few fights through the cistern, and a sick bit of parkour around this massive pillar, and Cap found himself at the door of his assassin. Upon entering the door, the assassin didn't immediately try to kill our hero like he had on entry to Paradise. Instead, he wanted to talk. He even apologized and said that the gods had other plans for our hero. Though a bit anticlimactic, Cap decided not to kill his killer, instead making another friend in the process and learning more about the oppression his countrymen and the Steel Garrote seemed to be wreaking on the living lands. Having fought for the country and seen the atrocities committed in the name of imperial expansion, Cap believed Eagwolf. His country could absolutely be cruel, and that cruelty would make Cap no friends. Still itching for a fight though, Cap ran a few quick errands and then found a bounty with the last shreds of daylight. Octave, the Firebrand. Octave was hiding out with a decently large crew of small, punchable people in a godless ruin just north of Paradise. Cap went in expecting quite the fight, but had an easy enough time taking down the small baddie. First, Cap charged in and whacked one of the doors, then turned his sights to another henchman. After the second one went down, Kai taunted Octave while Cap spank and planked him with his fist and his shield to fill up his stun bar, and then he unleashed a quick flurry of blows and one final sick uppercut to take out Octave. After that, it was a simple matter to clean up the other little people before a good night's rest and a chat with Kai and Marius. Kai had taken a liking to us after we forgave our assassin, so he actually offered us some training, resulting in a +2 to our might attribute, granting us roughly 5% more damage and a bunch more carry weight. Not bad, Kai. Thanks. And then, Marius scolded us for letting Eagwolf live. Then the voice in our head did the same, but we're sticking to our principles here. Cap doesn't just kill out of revenge during key story moments. Only self-defense, and party defense, and when a lizard's just sitting there menacingly, sometimes, and bounties. Yep, that's about it. Anyway, the next morning we decided to hunt one of our 2 remaining bounties, the Yellow Bands, a group of bandits hiding out just south of where the Watcher that we're supposed to find is. We snuck into the camp over the front door at the recommendation of the bounty master, but it didn't help much and we were spotted almost immediately. This fight was brutal. There were several bandits, maybe 10 to 15 of them, and then another 4 or so bears, and none of them went down easy. The melee fighters were very aggressive, often pressuring me 2 or 3 at a time, while the bears and archers mostly focused on Kai and Marius, who both went down several times throughout the fight. We fought valiantly though, chugging through 5 or 6 health potions and a couple of essence potions to keep ourselves up, which really could have been worse. We did use an enormous amount of food and alcohol at the beginning of the fight though for the liquid courage and extra stats. That Mogren's mushroom food that boosts damage and damage reduction by 20% was especially helpful. Without that, we definitely would have gone down. Even after taking down most of the enemies, the fight was still very difficult and dangerous because of the 3 remaining very aggressive enemies, and my allies being knocked down again and again. I got Marius back up so that I could tell him to entangle an enemy to give me a chance to focus one down instead of whittling them all down like I had been. That was very helpful and let us clean up the final bears. Whew, that was a tough bounty. Time to visit the Watcher and get a clean bill of health so that we can go further inland. While searching for the Watcher though, we found this place called the Watcher's Mirror, which made this voice in our head react to a memory of someone in the past called Kishamal, who resembled our hero with a fungal face, seemingly a godlike like us. They led the godless people here in the living lands, the Akita. They built a city and eventually fled, feeling like a failure when the city was destroyed by some unknown force. Weird memory, but a cool vision. After the most obvious ancient trap Cap has ever seen rose out of the water in the center of the mirror, Cap pulled the ancient axe out of the ice. He killed all of the undead who rose out of the water to take the axe back though. A bunch of punches, a couple flying shield smacks, and a few potions later, the undead were deader than dead, and we moved on to the Watcher's house where we fought 2 bears, found a ring that's going to boost the power of our healing and essence potions by 20%, which is fantastic because we use quite a lot of essence charging and shield bashing, and we got a reading of our soul. The Watcher said that we're healthy, but there was a thorn in our soul and our soul grew around it. But we're healthy, And that is all the ambassador needed. With plenty of daylight left, we set off to find our last bounty in the region before talking to the ambassador. Our last hunt is an ogre named Ralga at Mercenary Falls nearby. Sneaking up on the ogre was easy enough, even taking out one of the Zarups next to him with just one godlike power stab, and the fight with the ogre wasn't too bad either. Ralga had a giant club and was not afraid to use it, but his attackers were slow and easy to block or dodge. After a few rounds of Kai's fire and ire, several haymakers, and even a few flying plank and spanks, we got a nice stun combo of body shots in and an uppercut that knocked the massive ogre off his feet. From there, it was just a few more punches and shield bashes to take him down. All in a day's work. Back in Paradise, we turned in 3 bounties at once, received some compliments from the bounty master, Kai, and Marius,
Nice work on the bounties. Just don't get a big head about it.
and more importantly, earned enough experience for level 8. With our new ability point, we took a second rank in Shield Bash to increase the amount of stun that we deal with the plank, which should be very helpful in trying to stun the big bad guys or healers in big fights. For our attributes, we dropped another point into Dexterity so that we can attack even faster. It was already sundown, so instead of seeing the ambassador tonight, Cap decided to sleep for the night and meet with him tomorrow. The meeting with the ambassador was a mixed bag. Cap told the ambassador that he let the assassin and rebels go, which the ambassador did not appreciate. When Inquisitor Ludwin showed up, she didn't appreciate it either, though the ambassador took the fall for us, which was quite helpful. Ludwin has no clue that we are the reason the rebels are free, which does afford us a little extra freedom from the scary, flaming eye lady. However,
Clearly I've wasted my time with you, Ambassador. From now on, I will break the frontier on my own terms.
not good, but not today's problem. After Ludwin left, the ambassador gave us permission and new orders to head to Fior Mesiverno, an Animancer settlement in Emerald Stair, where the ambassador hopes we can find more information about the Dream Scourge that we were sent here to investigate. At camp that same night, Kai and Marius hyped up the danger of Emerald Stair. Will Cap's shield, fists, and will be enough to deal with whatever threats lurk in the wilderness? Find out next time. Emerald Stair in the Living Lands is a dangerous, giant mushroom-infested, lush farmland and wilderness. It is the breadbasket of the Living Lands, but the Dream Scourge has it on hard times. Our hero, Cap Tain, has just arrived in the region fresh from Dawnshore with the mission of investigating the source of this Dream Scourge plague. To do so, he's going to have to enlist the help of animancers from Fior Mesiverno, a city of Valian nerds whose research may save the world or destroy it, depending on who you ask. Can Cap find the source of the Dream Scourge here? Can he solve its mystery and save the Living Lands? Can he make any new friends? And will his fists prove enough to deal with the threats lurking in the ground, the water, and the woods? Let's find out. In case you missed episode 1 of Cap's adventure, check out the video over here. First thing upon arriving in Emerald Stair, Cap encountered a little pink Orlin fighting with some very large and kinda cute mushrooms. It turns out these mushrooms are very dangerous though, as they give Cap an absolute beating. In just this first fight, he went through more than one healing potion thanks to the massive poison damage that these spiky little guys throw out as a ranged attack. Luckily, a few charges and punches were enough to take out all the little shrooms, but if this is anything to go by, the fights ahead are bound to be tough. After finishing off the shrooms, the Orlin lady introduced herself as Yatsli, a researcher on the godless people who used to inhabit the land. Though her demeanor seemed to excite the party, she just needed a favor. A vase off the top shelf of this godless ruin in front of us. Easy enough, right? Well, the ruins looked to be infested with more of these tiny mushrooms, so while Yatsli ran off back to the city, Cap tried his hand at a little parkour. He imagined if he jumped left towards those rocks, he wouldn't manage to grab on in time and would fall to his death, so he went to the right, hugging the wall and making it up the side almost without issue. This was the perfect spot to sneak around from and then up to the vase. Only problem? Getting down on the other side was a mistake, and he had to billy goat his way down the cliff into unfamiliar territory to escape the shrooms. But he did escape, right into a barn with an angry revenant that he killed with a few punches. Outside the barn, though, was a new landscape. A terraced farm with pink machines and revenants doing the farming? These revenants don't seem hostile like the one in the barn, but it is bizarre. Smart, but bizarre. Nearby, Cap met the apparent owner of these revenants, an animancer named Elia. Cap helped her out by digging through one of her corpses, which helped her figure out
not only is the Dream Scourge affecting our farms, it's disrupting animancy, unraveling our work. Sounds like I have more research ahead of me. but at least now I have a sense of direction.
Looks like the Dream Scourge may be affecting crops here. Elia's friend Giada seems to think so, whoever Giada is. One farm away, we also met Joseph, another Revenant farmer and rival of Elia. His Revenants seemed to be running away, and he asked us for help to find them.
If I have to chase down one more Revenant, I'll lose my mind.
You know, sure, whatever. If we find them, we'll help you out, bud. After another tough fight with some mushrooms, Cap was basically out of healing potions. Only 2 left, so he decided to check the nearby docks to see if there was a merchant with any in stock. Unfortunately, nothing, which felt really dangerous. He went searching through some of the houses for supplies, but found little that would help. Though Fior Messiverno was right there, with supplies and everything, Cap decided to check out the perimeter a bit first. On the eastern edge of the wall in the rolling crags was a small group of enemies nested into a rocky outcropping. These ones all Dream Thrall spiders. They went down easy enough with a few punches and charges, which let Cap explore just a little bit more. Nearby, Cap investigated a spider-infested farm and met a new spider species that looked a bit like an artichoke. The little wood spiders were no problem, only a couple punches to squash, but the big one that dug itself out of the ground was quite spooky. Cap saw it and ran away to create some distance, and when it charged in, he commanded Marius to tangle it with some roots and attack it. The spider ignored Cap, but beat the hell out of Marius, taking him almost all the way down before he could create some distance. Kai was still in good health though, so he taunted the big spider and helped Cap clean it up. With the spiders dead, the farm was ready for a little exploration. The front door to the barn with the shiny loot sound behind it was locked, and we did not have enough lockpicks to make it through. Luckily, Cap found a key after breaking in upstairs, and that key opened the front door where we found some unique loot that unfortunately wasn't an upgrade to use. But the new gauntlets were pretty drippy, so we used them as a transmog. Then we found a ranger outpost and a really big camp of Zarups and bears right next to it. We started the fight by attacking the big bear in front of us, but the rest of the camp heard it and came running. There were way too many enemies and Cap was really low on supplies, so with great courage, he ran away as fast as he could. We will have to be back to clear out this camp sometime soon. Running away from the Zarup camp led Cap straight to the front door of Fior, where he met a nice guard named Nico, who told us,
"You could do a lot worse than Giata, but she can be a bit confrontational. The governor's manor is on the far side of town. You can't miss it. Just follow the sound of foul language."
Inside the city, Captain Alfir, a member of the Steel Garrote that we briefly told to play nice back in Paradise, met us on her way out of town. This meeting felt like a threat though, and it felt quite a lot like a threat to invade Fior should we fail any diplomatic mission here. That is concerning. We're gonna need to keep an eye out for the Steel Garrote. They are not gonna make us any friends here. Cap then picked up 5 bounties from a researcher turned bounty master and did some shopping for some much needed supplies. With supplies in hand, our hero headed for the foul language, ready to meet the governor and Giada, who was tearing him a new one.
Look at these crops! Look at your city! The Dream Scourge is laying waste to our home!
While Cap didn't hear much foul language at all, this Giada character really was laying into Governor Vidaro. She accused Vidaro of not taking the Dream Scourge seriously, and after some back and forth with Cap trying to play both sides and keep everyone happy, playing the diplomat, while still focusing his fiery animator's energy on the Dream Scourge, the governor banished Giada from Fior Messiverno. Forever. Terribly sad. But it does mean our offer for Giada to work with us to stop the Dream Scourge is going to be accepted, and then some. Giada will be accompanying us as soon as she can pack her things up, but while she packs her things up, she's asked Cap for a few errands regarding the Dream Scourge. There are 3 groups of researchers that she needs us to talk to. The first is Elia, the Revenant farm expert. Before we set out for Elia's farm again, we visited Vidaro's house and snooped around because no one really seems to mind us doing that. What we found there was both frustrating and sad. Vidaro's mother was locked in a room on the bottom floor, laying on a bed with fungus growing from her face. She has the Dream Scourge, even as the governor ignores the problem and claims that there is no Dream Scourge in Emerald Stair. Just as bad, we found and read a letter stashed on the ground from some anonymous person chiding Vidaro for not having made talk about the Dream Scourge crisis go away. It seems someone is pulling Vidaro's strings, even as he, his family, and his people suffer from this crisis. Something is fishy here, and I want to know who's pulling the strings, but Vidaro didn't have any answers for me and became quite upset when I confronted him about his mother.
To confront me like a cum in the crim.
On the other hand, we also sort of stole this armor upgrade from Vidaro. We're giving up the free barbaric shout in favor of 20% additional movement speed and a tiny bit more damage mitigation. The 20% movement speed is the real boon though. That is going to let us kite enemies while punching them, or just maneuver into position easier. We'll also be able to explore a bit faster, which will be nice. After our conversation with Vidaro, we stopped by the bar for some last-minute supplies before heading back to Elia's farm. At the bar, we met a drunk lieutenant, a local ranger who was worried about two of his newest rangers who had disappeared for some canoodles 3 days prior. We offered to help him because this drunk ranger wasn't going to be of any use. I'm sure we'll be back up that way to search for them after a night's sleep. With a few extra food items in pocket, we quickly headed back to Elia's farm, where our earlier favors to her persuaded her to share what she knew about the Dream Scourge.
I believe whatever causes it is older by far. Maybe even as old as the living lands. The exotic plants and animals, the twisted landscape, the Dream Scourge. They have a common ancestor.
Not very useful information, but intriguing nonetheless, I guess. After chatting with Elia, we ran south back up the hill looking for Yatsley to give her the vase we found, but instead found a few mushrooms to fight. These things exploded in our face and almost killed us, but a swig of grog and a potion fixed us right up. Since Yatsley wasn't there, we ran back to Fjord to find her house and hand it over to her there. A rather charged conversation later, we received enough experience to get us to level 9, unlocking a new ability and an additional attribute point. With our newest ability point, the choice was quite challenging. Another rank of constant recovery could do us some good, getting us up to 100% regeneration from our last bit of damage taken. That could make us almost invincible if we managed to duck and weave long enough after getting hit. Except we already have 75% regeneration, which is very good. We could take another rank of Shield Bash as well, but we don't really need to knock enemies further back because we already have to chase them down a little bit to get more hits in after smacking them once. Ultimately, we settled on taking Parry, which allows us to make timed blocks that will automatically counterattack enemies and deal additional stun, which should be quite powerful. I'm sure we'll see in our next few fights. For our attribute, we decided to drop this one into Constitution because poison damage from these shrooms and spiders hurts if we end up with full accumulation, so a little extra resistance there is going to go a long way. From Fjord, we set back out toward the south to the coast where we met Yvette and Remy, two animancy researchers and philosophers that Giada asked us to meet with. They asked Cap a bunch of questions about his life and thoughts as a godlike, none of which seemed all that interesting, but answering the questions was all the favor they needed to share their thoughts on the Dream Scourge.
Giada will be interested to learn that the Dream Scourge cannot just be studied in a lab. Its nature is wild, so it has to be studied in the wild. Our machines and experiments would meddle with it too much.
And like anything affecting the soul, it must be connected to essence. Thus, if she wishes to discover more about the Dream Scourge, a Pillar of Adra would be a good place to start.
Honestly, not very helpful. I could have told Giada we should check out Pillars of Adra, as I have already interacted with two, which let me talk to the voice in my head and push back the thorns, which seem related to this Dream Scourge plague. I could have told her that. As it was already late in the day, Cap and crew decided to pack it in for the night and take a rest. After a good night's sleep, it's off to Fjord again to meet with who we should have started with from Giada's list, Monte Pastor, who is right next door in the Animancy workshop. Along the way though, we got into a little trouble with some more mushrooms, especially these little bomber guys who just ran into the middle of the fight and exploded, dealing damage to themselves and their allies. If I managed to dodge them, they seemed pretty helpful, but if not, oh man, they hurt. These bruiser mushrooms, on the other hand, have a ton of health. They take quite a few punches to take down, and though shield bashing is useful on them, they have so much health, it turns out it's better just to reload both fists and just wail on them because shield bashing costs so much stamina anyway. During one of our tussles with the little mushrooms though, Cap threw an absolute rocket of an uppercut and launched this little guy 20 yards away, and that made it all worth it. Back in Fjord, we checked in with Giada to tell her about the people that we already met with, and then went to Monte Pastor, who of course needed a favor. He asked us to retrieve an Adragon heart from a being that recently died in the grove to the west.
The rangers say a Delamgon queen holds court there. Delamgon queens can be reasoned with, so if you want to get the heart peacefully, try not to kill her guards.
Got it. Retrieve the heart, avoid killing anything. How hard could that be? But we're going to have to tend to that a little bit later. We were asked by that drunk lieutenant in the bar to look for his missing rangers. Cap set out to the north through the gate toward the river, but was quickly interrupted by an Adiran spy sent by the ambassador. He warned us that the Steel Garrote were up to no good in the region, no good for Fjord or the Empire. We gave him an order to report back to us if he saw where the Steel Garrote were grouping up, and then we set our sights back on the task at hand. Find those missing rangers. A moment later, we were ambushed by some Zarops near the bridge we just crossed. It was just a couple of them, so no real threat, but we did land some of our first parries from our newest ability point, and they were not impressive. Functioning essentially like an automatic shield bash if Cap gets his timing just right. Neat, but not easy to pull off, and not nearly enough additional stun against normal creatures. Maybe it'll be better against boss fights? Nearby, Cap and crew found a nice new campsite and another fight with Zarops, this time with a priest and a bruiser present, which slowed the fight down considerably, but it was still no real threat. Just up the river from those Zarops, Cap found a heartbreaking scene. Belena, one of the rangers we were looking for, was sitting at a campfire and muttering to herself. She was just with it enough to not be violent and to give us her badge to turn back into her lieutenant, but she definitely had the Dream Scourge. Her partner and lover, Adelaro, turned into a full-blown dream thrall in front of her, but she was still worried about him and asked us to find him.
She's talking about another dream thrall.
Cap lied and told Belena that he would take care of him. Further up the river in a godless ruin, we found and put down Adelaro and several other dream thralls. It was unpleasant business. For a moment, Adelaro just stared at Cap as he punched him over and over. That might have done more damage than any strike with that big axe could have. These weren't villains. They were just really, really sick people driven insane by a horrible plague. After the Dream Thralls were taken care of, Cap headed back to Belena's camp, but she was nowhere to be found. There would be no closure before madness consumes her. Not too far from Belena's camp, we found a lake with revenants all around it, the revenants that Joseph asked us to search for earlier. For some reason, they were gathering here. Cap jumped in the lake to investigate and found a piece of a shattered moon in the center. When he surfaced with the object, all the revenants and undead gathered at the lake seemed to become hostile, so Cap swam and then took off running. Joseph asked Cap to bring whatever was drawing his revenants away back to him, and though it seemed like a bad idea, what else was he supposed to do with it? Once out of range and after clearing the area around the campsite, Cap and crew took a rest and then continued on a few hours later in the morning. Thankfully, nothing attacked overnight, though Cap did have a rather fitful sleep thanks to the voice visiting him in his dreams again. The voice was afraid of Ludwin and wanted us to kill or flee from her. It wasn't quite clear which. With the shattered moon still in pocket, Cap ran to Joseph to deliver him his haunting prize. All along the way, though, more undead came back to life because of it. There was this giant skeleton barbarian guarding the bridge, and then another group just on the road next to Fjord. Undeath just seemed to follow us with this rock in Cap's pocket, but we did make it. Joseph was happy to receive the stone even though he was warned of its power. Cap hopes nothing happens to him, but he's pretty sure something will. We'll have to check back before long. Completing that favor for Joseph granted us enough experience to hit level 10, granting us a new ability point and another attribute point. For our ability point, we grabbed a second rank of finesse to improve our damage with our fists. It was just taking too many punches to take care of bruiser type enemies, and more damage was going to be essential. For our attribute point, we decided to put another point into resolve, bringing us to 9 thanks to the Wodaka totem buff at our camp from back in Dawnshore. This will give us just a tad more stamina, which we've run out of quite often over the past few days, as well as increase our second wind efficiency even more. After all, Cap can do this all day. From Joseph's, Cap traveled back to Fior again to deliver the sad news about Belena and Adelaro to Lieutenant Fidelio.
Please tell me you found them.
Your rangers lost to the Dream Scourge. Nothing we could do.
The Dream Scourge? Here? Tell me you're joking.
We also told the lieutenant about the governor's mother who has the Dream Scourge.
I don't believe it. I never thought he'd sink that low. Scoffing at the Dream Scourge while it sleeps in his own house? I'm sorry. It's none of your concern. I'll deal with it myself.
Backtracking a little, while searching for Fidelio's rangers yesterday, Cap found this cave up in the cliffs at the waterfall which feeds the river running through Emerald Stair. A farmer had his food stolen by some thieves or bandits, and Cap suspects that they may be hiding out in this cave. However, reality strikes back and it wasn't bandits but the Paradisian rebels. Thanks to his generosity towards Eagwolf, the rebels aren't violently hostile, just a little passive-aggressive.
And you, Adirn, should just be moving on.
The leader of these rebels makes the case that her people would die without the food that they stole from the farmer, and Cap reluctantly lets them keep it.
These people would die without that food. Well done.
The important thing here is these people live and that Cap has made another set of new friends. If he can befriend the rebels enough, maybe at some point he can bring them to the negotiating table for a beneficial, non-exploitative relationship with the Empire. And if that fails, maybe he can join them. The farmer, though, was none too pleased. Sorry, friend. Back in the woods on the way to the Delimgan Queen, we found a few rogue groups of Zarops out in the wild, and boy, they were tough. Just listen to these punches land. These guys are tough as nails, and our iron fists just aren't cutting it anymore. They take very little damage from anything that doesn't cost us essence, but we were able to slowly whittle them down. In this fight, we did try out the reward Joseph gave us, a trinket that lets us summon a phantom to fight on our side. It was a neat trick, but it didn't seem all that strong, unfortunately. Nearby, we found some mushrooms ready for a fight, guarding what looked like a stone arch gateway to the grove we were headed to. But there was a Delimgan with them, and out of an abundance of caution so that Cap wouldn't piss off the queen, we ran, and we ran fast. No killing tree people until after meeting with the queen, if at all. A little south of that arch, we billy-goated our way up the cliff to find a new campsite, a possible Pargrunan cache, and a path to the grove. The cache looked to be guarded by those tanky Zarops, so we moved on to the grove where we found a tower with a shrine to Skane and a new totem to add in our camp. Marius was not happy about that at all, though, and so he jumped off the tower. It was fine, though. After billy-goating our way down the tower and then the cliff, Cap found himself mere feet from a hostile Delimgan and a bunch of sneaky mushroom demons. He made it past them and into the grove, where the real challenge began, though. Everything in here seemed hostile, but if he were to kill anything, he would likely invoke the queen's wrath. Cap had a thought that if he just sprinted through without killing anything, maybe the queen would not be upset and would calm our people down. But the more he thought about it, the less likely that felt. He couldn't be in combat with any of the Tree Queen's people if he wanted an audience. Stealth was the only option. Getting through the first couple of crowds was easy because they left so many gaps in their vision, but this little guy spotted us. Marius and Kai couldn't help themselves and got into a fight with them while Cap sprinted away and hid on some rocks, conveniently finding a piece of the Skane shrine while he was at it. And he waited. Kai and Marius were knocked down and playing dead just long enough to lose the attention of the shrooms, and out of combat once more, Cap and crew delved deeper into the grove undetected until the queen offered to speak with him. The queen said something odd, though. She called Cap,
I mean one from the land.
Aren't the ones from the land the Akita? Cap is from Adir, not the Living Lands. What does that mean? Anyway, the queen parted with the Adragon heart without issue, taking favor on Cap and letting him leave in peace. That is another friend, and a powerful one at that. Queen of the Tree Ladies seems a good friend to have. The queen also let Cap explore the grove unfettered by violence, including looting this nice treasure chest with a massive necklace upgrade over the Phantom Summoning Trinket. The Garland of the Wild Groves, a very pretty flower necklace, grants 30% resistance to poison accumulation, which should go a long way in fighting off spiders and mushrooms. With this, Cap shouldn't really be hurt much by poison, and if he takes grog before a fight, he should be immune or almost immune to poison. With the Adragon heart in pocket, Cap headed back to Fjord once more and placed it in Montepastor's machine to complete the favor. Montepastor returned the favor by giving us a little bit more, though still pretty useless information about our soul, and some more information about the Dream Scourge, which was pretty interesting. He said,
The essence has been drained from the land, diverted, like the flow of a river.
Which sounds pretty purposeful to us, and makes me wonder, do the gods have something to do with this? We then shared the new information with Giada, and of course, she asked for one small favor. To retrieve her whatamajig from the basement where her parents died, using said whatathing. It was a short, sad journey through the basement. We read Giada's parents' wills, which they had prepared before the experiment in case the worst should happen, and it did. They died. But the voice in our head was not as sad as Cap was. The voice seemed to find it beautiful, saying,
Beauty reborn, a life of peace.
But beauty and rebirth can still be a sad thing. What they may have gained, they lost in equal or greater measure, and Giada certainly lost more than she gained. After we turned over Giada's dangerous inheritance to her, she joined the party and Kai went back to camp, happy for some rest. Giada told us to make the most of Fjord though before we leave, because it may be a long time before we can return in any full measure. So Cap went looking for a quest and found an old lady with a superstition about feeding the dead that she needed satisfied. Cap and the party all thought it would be better to feed the living than the dead, but the old lady insisted, so we took the food with a lie that we would bring it to the restless dead and returned it to the granary instead. We also received a note from our spy friend telling us that he'd found where the steel garrote were hiding out, and it was in a cave behind a waterfall west of Fjord, and that they're gathering explosives? That's not good. We're gonna have to go deal with them soon. After delivering the grain, Cap set out to explore the farmlands around Fjord a bit more in search of some experience. This led to a few fights, of course. First with a few mushrooms outside of a painter's house with a treasure map painted inside. Nearby, Cap met a couple complaining about Zar upgrades of their animatic farming equipment, but the rangers wouldn't do anything about it. Cap, always happy to help and make a friend, offered to help, but the location of the Zarbs were very, very far away from the farm, so they'll have to wait. Nearby, on the eastern edge of Emerald Stair, Cap found another fight with some mushrooms, of course, but much more importantly, he found a time capsule seemingly brought up from the ground by the mushrooms, and inside it was an incredible upgrade. Aothasian boots, which would give Cap an additional 30 stamina and 1 resolve. The additional resolve puts him up to 10 and gives him a few more stamina from that as well, but the 30 stamina is worth almost the first 10 points of resolve alone, which is an incredible buff. We're still going to run out of stamina, of course, but we are going to have a lot more to work with when we first start fights, which is going to be very strong. As the night approached and then wore on, Cap got into a few more fights. The first was with a nasty group of spiders and a spider queen. Cap focused on the queen spider first, throwing punch after punch, and eventually took it down, but when the queen went down, a bunch of little spiders swarmed Cap and crew. Giada suggested,
The queen! Kill the queen and the rest will follow.
Except the spider queen was already dead, so they must have just been enraged by that fact. Unfortunate, but nothing a little squashing couldn't deal with. Next, Cap and crew fought briefly with a big boy shroom and 2 bears, and it went about as you would expect. A punch here, a punch there, a plank there, spank there. And finally, we cleared out the zone around a campsite of mushrooms and zarps for enough experience to hit level 11, granting us the next rank of Iron Fists, which upgrades our fists to exceptional quality, granting more damage and the ability to deal good damage against those Zarps who were super tanky earlier. This ability will go a long, long ways in allowing us to take on those bounties that we picked up a few days ago and to deal with whatever Emerald Stair can throw at us. We took our new Iron Fists out for a test fight real quick against a few remaining bears near our campsite. We didn't deal nearly as much damage as I thought we would though, with the bears still taking quite a few buffs to take down. Cap could be in for a rough time if we don't find some more damage increases soon. After a good night's rest and a chat with each of our companions, we discovered that we had not cleared out the campsite nearly as well as we thought, and right next to the camp there was a giant hole in the ground with a dream-thralled ogre just chilling at the bottom. It'd be unwise to jump in and just fight it, right? Right? Upon closer inspection with Cap's fists, this guy doesn't look completely like an ogre, and the vomiting on us makes that even less clear. But the fungus does make him look like a dream thrall, and he's huge, but he also kind of looks like a revenant. I'm unsure what Icern is, but he wasn't too bad to fight at all. With the power of our exceptional fists, a bunch of movement speed, and Giada's really powerful accelerate ability, we took down Icern with nothing but our fists, no problem at all. We even got a sick stunned combo off on the big guy that knocked him to his feet. Our reward for all that work was this hunk of star metal that Marius told us we should take to a blacksmith. Unless that blacksmith can make some armor out of it, or maybe some star metal knuckles, I'm not sure I care about this metal this time around the wheel. After killing that undead beast of whatever sort it was, Cap went around exploring around the perimeter of Emerald Stair for the rest of the day, fighting Zarab camp after Zarab camp and finding lots of loot, including 2 pieces of a Skane relic, a super cool ornamental battle axe that we're never going to use, and even our first bounty in the region, which was, of course, a Zarab camp at an abandoned farm. Thanks to having Giada in the party, these fights were incredibly frantic and fast-paced. Giada's ability to heal the party and accelerate both our attacks and our movement, coupled with charge and our armor granting 20% additional movement speed, means that we can get around the battlefield incredibly fast, picking off whichever target is weakest as quick as possible. Cap's friends are proving quite powerful allies, and they're making his Fists of Fury even better. After several hostile Zarup camps and patrols were taken out, Cap finally stumbled upon something he hadn't encountered yet. Non-hostile Zarups, in a large and fortified camp no less. Cap and crew cautiously walked through the camp to investigate and found a shirtless, bearded Kith with a crown of thorns on who turns out to be controlling the Zarups somehow, ordering them to attack the animancy equipment at farms as a form of ecological terrorism. Cap was caught in a real hard place here. He didn't disagree with the idea that animancy could be the cause of the Dream Scourge, but he also wasn't sure of it. Not even close to sure of it. He didn't want to kill all of these non-hostile Zarups though, but he also didn't want them raiding all of the farms for their equipment, or worse. In the end, Cap decided to let the man and the Zarups live, but he wouldn't complete Amadio's objective. Not too far away in the swamp, Cap stumbled upon 2 camps of undead. The first was easy to clear with only a few enemies and nothing they seemed to be protecting, but the second was a tough fight with archers, a fighter, and 2 chanters. The 2 chanters were especially tough because they kept summoning more undead, and he was a tanky freaking skeleton. A few minutes of tussle and bustle, spank and plank, and a bunch of uppercuts later, all of the undead were dealt with, but not before Giada was taken down momentarily. These skeletons were defending this house fiercely. Up above that house, Cap cleared out a few mushrooms with several furious punches, and then found this strange animantic hideout guarded by an electric door. Cap and crew fuddled their way through the puzzle, only to find a sprawling cave behind it with a multiple-volume journal from an exiled animancer inside. The journals spoke of an animancer exiled for experiments trying to invent a new body which did not sit well with his exilers or Cap. Revenants for farm work are one thing, new bodies for the living are quite another. Deeper into the cave, Cap found Ulrask, maybe the product of that new and better body experiment, or maybe another undead dream thrall ogre like Isern. Whatever Ulrask was, he proved to be the fight of a lifetime. Cap guzzled down as many beneficial foods as he could and led with the stealth attack, but it turned out Ulrask was not the main threat. His hits hurt, of course, but Cap could stun him pretty well with a couple of shield smashes which dealt quite a lot of stun. The real problem was that every so often, Ulrask seemed to summon undead in the form of chanters who summoned their own undead. Then there were shadows with ranged and melee attacks, and eventually 3 archers appeared that would pepper Cap with arrows. The skeletons proved a massive challenge with lots of health and several melee skeletons pressuring Cap at once. Helpfully, Giada and Marius kept Ulrask occupied while Cap fought off the summoned undead. A potion or 2 later, the first wave of undead were more dead, and Cap could focus on Ulrask. He landed several plank and spanks which stunned Ulrask and allowed for a nice combination of body shots and a powerful uppercut. But that only enraged Ulrask and summoned more undead, this time with the archers. Cap spent the next few minutes drinking potions, getting his companions back up, and charging the archers occasionally to knock them over and prevent them from shooting him quite as often. With the space afforded by another stun on Ulrask and the explosive charges on the archers, Cap managed to take down the big guy before cleaning up the remaining undead. What a fight. On one of the bodies that we found in the cave, we found a journal of one Ranger Monado who apparently had been murdered by a fellow Ranger. We'll have to go back out to the Ranger headquarters and hand this evidence over to them when we can. Once outside the cave, Cap and crew ventured a little to the south looking for a camp in the night and stumbled upon a strangled Adra. An Adra stone covered in invasive vines, much like the strangle root back in Dawnshore. With the help of the voice in our head, we cleansed it with a bit of advice to the voice and caused the vines to grow flowers, receiving a nice chunk of experience in the process. Cap and crew still needed to find a camp though. Down south a little while later, overlooking Fjord to the west and Nako to Deck to the south, Cap remembered he had picked up a powerful new ring, the Valian Dueling Ring, granting him a 7% chance to avoid melee damage. Between this new ring and his shield from Dawnshore, Unflinching Duty, Cap has a 12% chance to avoid melee damage, which is a lot of additional damage reduction, and a very powerful boon. After another dream chat with the voice in our head, Cap set out again and remembered the spy's note telling him that the Steel Garrote were hiding out behind a waterfall. The camp from the previous night was not far from a waterfall at all, so Cap and crew worked their way over there, fighting a camp of Zarups and a vicious bear along the way. Just to the north, Cap found the cave entrance behind the waterfall. Inside, he found a couple of Steel Garrote guarding a door, and Cap and crew had a chat with the guards who tried bribing Cap to turn around and leave.
Then you're not leaving.
Our hero chose the iron though, and the garrote chose death. Their armor could not handle the power of Cap's fists. Sneaking further in, Cap found more steel garrote and a ton of explosives. He started the next fight taking out the cleric first because while the cleric lives, so does everyone else. Next came the battle mage because fireballs hurt. And finally, Cap went and helped Marius out, who was cornered by a shielded garrote. While helping Marius, Giada was taken down a notch, so Cap sprinted over to help her. Several quick punches later, the 2 remaining enemies were down. In the final room of the cave, a similar fight played out, but this marauder could really take a hit. After a ton of punches and plank and spanks, we finally got a stun combo off and then took him down with a final punch. In the notes scattered around camp, it appeared Ludwin and the Steel Garrote were planning to invade and sack Fior, but thanks to our intervention, that wouldn't be happening, or at least wouldn't be happening for a while. This may have earned a true enemy in the Steel Garrote, but I'm not sure that the Garrote were ever friends to Cap to begin with. Once outside the cave, we headed back to Fior to pick up some supplies, turn in a bounty, and let the governor know that the Steel Garrote planned to invade.
Here?
From the city, Cap and crew returned to the waterfall and ventured down the river to find another bounty. This one for an earthen blight. A ghost led us into the cave and we ate a quick snack to prepare for the fight ahead, and then we charged in. First, Cap focused on the low health skeletons before turning his full attention to Beldereno, which we stunned with a series of punches and shield bashes. Finished off with a stun combo that sent the blight flying into the roof of the cave. All that remained was the light work of cleaning up the skeletons. Outside of the cave, our hero scaled the cliff and entered Naku Tadek. Inside the ancient temple, Giada used her phantasmal focus to work some wizardry on the Adra stone.
In layman's terms, I'm chumming the water.
I don't know if the waters were chummed, but a door opened and we, of course, ventured inside. Naku Tadek had a sprawling system of caves underground through that door, and of course, those caves were infested with giant and violent mushrooms. And undead. Of course there's undead. The mushrooms were a breeze, but the undead were aggressive and numerous, especially thanks to this chanter summoning 4 skeletons to group up on Cap. Nothing a couple of stun combos couldn't do though. Deeper in, we found this strange contraption body with a very nice looking spear sticking out of it, but Cap learned from that icy axe in Dawnshore, if a nice weapon's just sitting there, undead are sure to come defend it, and Cap doesn't need this spear, he's not going to use it. Better to leave it be and let the dead rest. In the next cave, just down the stairs from the spooky spear,
Are those Zarps worshipping a sporling? That's new.
and the hardest fight of the day. There was a spoiling boss, a Zarup, a Delimgan Scourge, and a Zarup Bulwark, and a Shaman. Cap started by taking out the weakest enemy, a small skirmisher that wasn't even worth mentioning, and then the Shaman, but the fight did not get easier from there. The remaining enemies were exceptionally high damage and kept taking down our companions. This Delimgam Scourge was especially dangerous, unleashing combination after combination on us and our companions, making dealing damage extremely difficult. Add in that the big shroom Celia kept applying shields to the Scourge and the Bulwark, and this fight was brutal. Cap chugged potions, blocked flurry after flurry, and tried his best to get his companions up to apply buffs and debuffs and some extra damage, but there was no solution to this fight beyond healing and throwing as many punches and charges as possible on that Scourge. Once the Scourge was isolated into the small watery pit in the room, Cap got a good stun combo off, and the fight eased up considerably. But there were still ranged poison attacks from Celia to contend with, and the Bulwark was still full health. Several shield smashes later, Celia now, the giant mushroom, was stunned, and a quick stun combo took out the dastardly mushroom. And our companions had mostly taken care of the Bulwark. Thank God. That was a hard fight, and it was enough experience to hit level 12. Level 12 granted us another new ability point, which we chose to put into his second rank of charge, granting us the ability to dash twice as far. But just as important, it opens up charge rank 3 for our next ability point, which is going to greatly increase the amount of stun that we can deal with our most important ability. We also gained another attribute point, and this one went into dexterity for marginal increase to attack speed, but it wasn't an easy choice. Diminishing returns are in full effect, and it may be beneficial to start boosting up some other attributes like perception for additional critical chance. We'll see about that in the future.
Hear us through the Adra.
Back at the base of the Adra Stone in Knuckle Tedek, Cap made greater contact with the voice than ever before. The voice turned out to be a floating face with one eye, apparently in the beyond and with some sort of nature-y body. The voice in our head claimed to be a god.
Sabadal.
We are Sabadals, godlike. Sabadal, the voice, gave us instructions to find the Tabaru Sanakis for more answers before offering us another boon of power. The Tabaru Sanakis are godlikes like us. Cap accepted the power, a new ability called Thorn of Sabadal, kind of a ranged version of the stealthy attack where we focus some godlike energy on our fist and punch it through the air at an enemy, damaging and rooting them. This finally gives us a ranged attack beyond just charging in. When Cap woke up from his conversation with Sabadal, he told his companions about this new or hidden god.
Sabadal is a god? But that's impossible. How could we have missed this?
And then the crew discussed where to find the Dream Scourge and this trapped god. In the middle of this conversation, Sabadal warned us of a battle in the distance. When we ran outside, we saw Fior on fire in the distance and took off running. Definitely not looting anything along the way. After passing a ton of dead Steel Garrote, Cap ran into a ranger with a captured Steel Garrote. We decided to send the man back to the ambassador in chains. The good news though, Fior was saved because we took out those Steel Garrote in the cave the day before. That is what I call good timing. Inside the city, we filled in the governor, Quilici, and Yatsli on our findings at Knuckle Tedek. With Fior still a little on fire, we helped the governor make the decision to take the Fiorins to Paradis to hide out until the Dream Scourge and the Steel Garrote are dealt with. It's a bold decision, but better than heading to Thirdborn where we don't know how the Dream Scourge is faring. At least in Paradis, there are walls, guards, and an able port that can bring in food from the rest of the world. Yatsli though ran ahead of us to Shatterscarp to meet with the leader of Thirdborn after agreeing to help us find the Hall of the Tabaru Sanakis that Sabadal told us to find. We'll have to meet her there. After the conversation, we picked up some more supplies, turned in a bounty, and then camped for the night with one more big day planned for Emerald Stair. With Fior a little banged up and the people fleeing for Paradis, Cap felt it only fair that he clean up the land just a little bit on his way out, so he set out to clear out the remaining 2 bounties. Skipping the Delmgen bounty because of his interaction with the Queen, we want to keep her as an ally. The first bounty to take care of was the old bear Nuna, in a cave down in this canyon. One premonition of mushroom-fueled death later, Cap jumped into the fight against old Nuna with food buffs on. The bear wasn't too bad, taking quite a bit of damage from our punches, shield bashes, and new Thorn of Sabadal ability, but the mushrooms were dealing a ton of damage to our friends, taking them down and dealing a lot of damage to us. Mid-combat grog did some good, but we still had to chug several potions, especially essence potions. Between our shield bashes, charges, and new Thorn ability, we chew through essence like no one's business. It wasn't too long though before we managed to take out the remaining mushrooms and collect Nuna's bounty proof. Up next, we sought out the Trenton bandits from this vantage point on a ranger outpost. What we found instead was a memory of Enhekala, a previous godlike of Sabadal, and the one responsible for building Knuckle Tedek. Eventually, we did find the Trentons at an abandoned homestead overtaken by wilderness and fast-growing trees. The fight against the Trentons was simple. We snuck up, got in a few good shots before they could react, and then Cap focused on Big Willie. Cap used his shield to stack up a stun, and then unleashed a full combination, leaving Willie vulnerable to the few body shots needed to take him down. With bounties in hand, Cap cleared out the remaining bandits, rescued this ranger from his cage, and headed back to Fjord to turn in the bounties. Evidence that Cap was leaving Emerald Stair a little less wild while the people wait to return someday. Hopefully, it's enough. The bounties granted Cap enough experience to hit level 13, and with our new ability point, we took the final rank in charge, granting the ability 50% extra stun, which will greatly increase our ability to unleash our full combinations on bosses, and maybe even some common enemies. That same night, Cap headed out for the gated road to Shatterscarp, but encountered a blockade of Steel Garrote, who had apparently killed the rangers who were stationed there. This boiled Cap's blood, but he kept his cool and didn't kill these Garrote in cold blood out of an attempt not to provoke Ludwig further. Hopefully, that's worth it. A day or two of travel later, Cap and crew arrived in Shatterscarp, hopefully ready for whatever new threats lurk in this desert wasteland. Though Cap managed to punch and plank his way through Emerald Stair, will Cap's fists and wits be enough to find the source of the Dream Scourge here? Will his attack on the Steel Garrote come back to bite him? Or will he find nothing but the sorrow of a plague-ridden land? Find out next time. Shatterscarp of the Living Lands is a harsh but absolutely stunning desert with Thirdborn as its main settlement, full of rough and tumble mercenaries just trying to squeak out a living after leaving wherever behind. But Shatterscarp is under siege from the Dream Scourge, a plague that twists the soul and body into a sort of fungal undeath. Can our hero Cap Tain find the source of the Scourge here in Shatterscarp? Can he best the hordes of Dream Thralls with only his fists and trusty shield? Or will he crumble under the pressure and grief of the plague-ridden Living Lands? Let's find out. If you missed episode 1 in Dawnshore, you can find it over here. And if you missed episode 2 in Emerald Stair, you can find that one over here. Over the trip to Shatterscarp from Emerald Stair, Cap got some good rest, granting him 2 new ability points. The first of these he put into Unbreakable, which reduces the cost of blocking by 25%. A nice boon when being assaulted by many enemies at once. The second point we put into Devastating Criticals, increasing our critical damage with our punches by 30%. If we find enough sources of critical chance, that is going to be a very solid damage bump. Cap and crew arrived in Shatterscarp to find Adirian soldiers and a Thirdborner arguing after an apparently brutal battle with Dream Thralls. Several soldiers from both sides died against the Dream Thralls. We haven't seen too many of those so far, but if there are enough to send the Adirian soldiers retreating, we might be in for a tough time. A few feet away from the arguing leaders, another Adirian soldier told Cap of an old sulfur mine that was being reopened to assist Thirdborn in making gunpowder to defend their town and Shatterscarp from Dream Thralls. Cap offered to help, and the soldier gave our hero directions to the mine. Down the cliff, Cap met 2 Amalan teenagers whose parents had turned into Dream Thralls while they were out looking for food. Cap offered to put the Dream Thrall parents out of their misery so that the kids could perform their funeral rites. 2 brief fights with packs of Dream Thralls away, Cap found the teen's house. It was unpleasant putting these Dream Thralls down, and it was unpleasant putting any of them down. But maybe the kids can get some closure now. Not too far from the house, Cap found this grisly scene with a note. Tell them any tale of sky and storm and earth, but do not tell them of my final desert rose to flee the coming dream drowning. This man seems to have had the Dream Scourge and taken himself out before it could fully take him. Not even 1,000 steps into Shatterscarp, and the whole region seems in shambles. The plague has hit this place harder than Dawnshore and Emerald Stair combined. A short while later, while exploring this massive crystalline structure, Cap and crew stumbled upon a shrine to Whale, the god of both deception and revelation, among other things. This shrine may prove beneficial in our camp, like the shrine to Wotica we found in Dawnshore earlier. Before Cap and crew headed for Thirdborn that same night, the team got into another hairy fight with some aggressive Dream Thralls. Giada and Marius were both knocked down at least once, and Cap himself went down briefly before cleaning up the final 2 aggressive melee Thralls with Giada's help. A short swim through the Thirdborn oasis and a peek over the edge of a cliff later, Cap and the team assembled with the guards at the gate of Thirdborn to defend from a massive Dream Thrall assault. Cap buffed up with some quick food, and then the team charged in to assist the guards, immediately running fist first into a very tough Dream Thrall gunner that ate our punches for dinner. It felt to Cap like he was punching a metal wall when fighting several of these Dream Thralls. The fight was frantic, but it turns out that these tough guys can be taken down with a gnarly stun combo like any other enemy. It just takes a little while, and his knuckles hurt a little bit afterwards. After several minutes of punching and charging, 5 more Dream Thralls snuck by the guards all the way to the gate and had one guard cornered. Cap and the team ran in and started swinging, but with so many tough enemies, the fight lasted another several minutes. To the guards' credit, they did manage to hold their own, but they didn't do a lot of damage. After helping the guards defend the town, one of the guards questioned Cap, trying to pressure him to stay out, but the other guard proved loyal to the help that Cap provided and allowed the crew inside. After some shopping, we broke the news to the teenagers about their parents, and Giada offered some comforting words, thankfully.
The grief you're feeling now, it doesn't go away, but you learn to live with it. Eventually, you befriend it. Trust me.
Upstairs, we met with Yatsley and Temerity, the leader of Thirdborn. Temerity was suspicious, but Cap played it diplomatically, trying not to piss her off. Cap and Temerity and Yatsley had a brief discussion about the threats lurking in Shatterscarp, namely Ludwin and the Archmage of Terror Ringgrim, who currently controls the ruins that Yatsley needs us to visit to learn more about the source of the Dream Scourge and the garden where Sappadal is. No worries, right? Just the Archmage of Terror and a lady with flaming eyes who we pissed off by defending Fjord. Easy peasy. Temerity did give directions to Ringgrim though.
Head east of here, go past the Pargunin ruins, and when you see the ice, you're there.
Downstairs, Cap met with Yatsley again and recruited her into the party, sending Marius back to camp for some rest and chill time with Kai. I'm sure they're not going to argue, right? Yatsley warned us.
Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it? Hopefully we'll even get to keep all our limbs.
No worries, right? Before charging off to meet the Archmage though, Cap is in desperate need of experience. With these tough Dream Thralls running around, these exceptional meat hammers are just not going to smash it. We need superb meat hammers if we're going to take on the Archmage, should it come to that. Hell, we're going to need superb Iron Fists just to take out most of Shatterscarp. For experience then, we picked up a quest to bring some old crewmates back to this captain for one last drink, and picked up 5 bounties. On the way out of town, Cap ran into some old friends, Elora the smuggler from Tutorial Island, and Leofled and Gladwine, who Elora smuggled to Thirdborn. Cap helped Leofled and Gladwine get here to the property that they bought in town. They were happy to see our hero and gave Cap a very drippy new gambeson, which Cap happily put on as a transmog. From the town gates, Cap began his hunt for experience by running north into the Sand Sea. There, he found a sad scene of a man trapped in a cave by roots who starved to death. That is not the kind of experience he was looking for. Nearby, Cap noticed a strangled Adra to commune with, but had to clear some spiders to get to it. Luckily, the spiders weren't too tough, only taking a few spanking planks to take down, but the fight granted just enough experience for level 14. Unfortunately, the next rank of Iron Fist isn't until level 16, so Cap settled on taking a rank of Harvest Essence to help out with Essence Sustain. Harvest Essence doubles the amount of Essence gained from killing enemies. For his attribute point, Cap put a point into Perception for more critical hit chance and thus more damage. Our hero then climbed his way to a strangled Adra stone where he briefly communed with Sappadal for a nice chunk of experience. From the strangled Adra, Cap set out further into the Sand Sea, finding a brutal fight with some beetles and skeletons. Yatsley proved herself a very strong companion for Cap though, throwing out powerful area of effect spells that made the fight much easier. She is going to be a great friend to have around. Across the ridge, Cap met a pretty bad painter and tried to help him out, but we don't have much faith. That painting looks nothing like what he's looking at, which is what I think he's trying to paint. Cap then made his way back south toward the mine he offered to help out and found himself in the brush with some Dream Thralls again. Several punches and purple bombs later, the crew cleared the Dream Thralls and moved on. A little further south, our hero found a rusty red stream of water with spiders all around it and decided to start clearing these out. The mine was going to have a spider problem too, so maybe these were related. Cap led with a leaping airborne charge and failed the superhero landing. The scream was a little cowardly, but nobody heard that, right? Cap did manage to take out the spiders though. Up above the stream and behind the waterfall that fed it, Cap found a very angry group of ghosts protecting some shiny loot. The fight was brutal, with these shades being tough as nails. Yatsley's powers proved invaluable though, doing the bulk of the damage to these powerful ghosts. Unfortunately, the loot wasn't worth it this time around the wheel. Cap has no need to summon spiders in combat. Cap and crew then finally arrived at the mine to find an apparently kind Adiran committed to alliances more than power. Cap offered to help clear out the spiders for the soldier and camouflage Thirdborner to help keep and promote the peace between Thirdborn and the Empire. The situation in Fjord, with the whole raiding and everything, made all of this sticky, so Cap needs this to work. A night of chatter with the team later, Cap and crew headed into the mine to fight some arachnids. The guard outside seemed rather intense, letting us through, but not until reminding us that spiders...
Fucking skitter.
And showing how much he dislikes the Thirdborners for what transpired in the mine. Inside the mine was an arachnophobe's hellscape. Little giant spiders everywhere, enough webbing to capture a god, and some spiders with carapaces tougher than steel plate. Luckily, a little godlike power and a pink wizard spells made relatively light work of these little creepers. The Spider Queen did try and take us down with a gnarly combo. Thorn of Sappadal rooted her in place, preventing her from hitting us. That is pretty handy. With the first big group of spiders down, Cap set fire to the nest and moved on to find more threats in the mine. Very handy again, Cap used his ranged fist attack to explode a barrel of explosives and one-shot this little giant spider. In the next big room, Cap found another bunch of spiders ready for squishing, but they did not go down easy. After taking out the first wave, several more spiders crawled out and some Dream Thralls accompanied them. These Dream Thralls were tough, and in the process of directing Yancey's magic, a barrel exploded at Cap's feet and he almost went down before a potion picked him back up. Soon after, another spider queen crawled out of the cave and almost ate Cap alive, but the crew ultimately prevailed. As a nice treat, Cap found some fancy gloves that made him feel like a man of iron with them on, so he decided to use them as a transmog. While clearing out the last few spiders, Cap was out-pressured by 4 of them and had to hide behind his shield while waiting for Yatzli to barrage them with her magic. The tactic was effective and kept Cap alive. Fist fighting 4 aggressive spiders at once in a tight space was quite challenging. On the way out of the cave, the guard from the mine entrance met us and tried to convince us to blow the whole mine up to avoid war with Thirdborn. Cap's goal is to avoid war through mutually beneficial alliances, not whatever this is. Yatzli said it best.
Ah, yes, because nothing averts war like an unprovoked attack.
Darlo was unhappy with this turn of events and decided to try and kill our hero, and he almost achieved it. Yatzli saved the day with massive magical damage, and Giada healed us up while Darlo focused his attacks on Cap. He did get a good few swings in, but Cap charged in, knocking him off his feet and stunning him, letting Cap get in a stun combination. From there, it was just a Thorn of Sapodol and a few more punches to take out the Zealous soldier. Hopefully, this will earn us a firmer alliance with Thirdborn. A night of restless sleep teaching Sapodol about Kith life on the land later, Cap and crew once more set out on the hunt for that mythical experience. First thing, Cap encountered a giant beetle and a few Zarabs. The fight appeared to be going well, with the giant beetle almost dead before Cap had to back off and create a little distance, but in the process, a Zarab priest healed every single enemy while the giant beetle spawned little beetles that added to the pressure of the fight. Cap's companions also went down, making the fight much harder until he managed to get them up. From there, Cap whittled down enemy health until they were all down for the count. Tough fight though. Exploring a little more, Cap found someone who seemed to have died falling off this waterfall, either on purpose or on accident. It was unclear which. Above the grisly scene, Cap found yet another Dream Thrall, this one apparently a natural healer who tried to let the waterfall wash away the plague, to no avail. Yet another victim of this terrible plague. A short walk away, Cap and crew found a small village or cluster of buildings on fire, and a well that made sounds like a Dream Thrall or undead. That is ominous. A note inside one of the buildings suggested this place was being used for research, so Cap kept exploring. After pulling a key from the door though, 3 ash blights appeared and absolutely kicked Cap's teeth in with fiery fire. After a premonition of death, Cap said no to the fight, only to circle around and lead with his sneaking charge attack. The fight went much better this time thanks to Yatzli's magic, and Cap backing off every time the Ash Blight attempted to explode and push Cap off of it. Turns out, these Blights really don't like being in melee combat with anything, so Cap has to make sure to knock them off the ground if he wants to do some sustained damage. Inside one of the research houses, Cap found a new shield that should prove useful against spiders, causing webs to no longer slow him down. With a key to the well in hand, Cap and crew climbed down the well only to find, you guessed it, some spiders. Thanks to the new shield maybe, the fights went well. Cap squashed and punched, and Yatzli dropped big purple bombs, making the fights a breeze. Through a crack in the wall, our hero found caged Dream Thralls and at least one person who hadn't fully turned yet.
Trapped! Branches and...
Deeper into the cave though, Cap found the Dream Thralls' captors, a group of researchers trying to find a cure for the Dream Scourge. They requested supplies from Captain Weemgar back at the entrance to Shatterscarp. Cap agreed to talk with Weemgar because any attempt at curing this Dream Scourge is worth pursuing, and Weemgar seemed to agree.
That's all we can hope to be.
Later that day, as the night began, Cap checked out a nearby bounty only to find that these enemies would be wicked tough to take down. Cap didn't even try. Cap and the team set out for the Sand Sea once again to try and find the captain's crew from back in Thirdborn. In the sea, Cap and team fought Zarops, giant beetles, little big beetles, and more. Cap found that he really enjoyed using his godlike powers here. There was a sort of catharsis in lining up a Thorn of Sapodol to hit more than one enemy. It was a powerful ability and felt very cool to throw out a ranged punch. At the end of a cliff, Cap and crew fought a group of dream thralls, and Yatsley managed to knock one off the cliff, instantly dooming it. Nearby, Cap found another bad painter, a memorial, and yet more Zareps. He lined up a thorn and threw it from stealth before dodging and weaving past thrown spears to take down the little slashers. Dream thralls showed up after, and Cap took them out both at the same time with a lined up thorn. Very satisfying. Then, Cap launched the Dream Thrall into the water far below with a well-placed charge, and that was even more satisfying. He also found a map for our friend Sansa back in Paradise. While exploring the cliffs at the edge of Shatterscarp, Cap cleared out many more Dream Thralls, and found one beautiful, but yet again, sad scene. This person appears to have drank themselves to death here on this cliff, overlooking the beautiful ocean in front of them. I wonder what they were thinking about. Were they mourning? An addict, soon to be a dream thrall? Whoever this was, I'm sorry. A fight with some tough dream thralls later, where Cap threw maybe 1,000 punches, the crew found an oasis with one of the captain's crewmates, and another piece of the totem back in camp. Tawe was a total bro, and agreed to meet with the captain back at Thirdborn. Tawe and Yatsley also seemed to get along.
You and I could be great friends, Tawe.
We'd have to find you a stepladder, but I'm not saying no.
Following along the cliff's edge, Cap found a large godless ruin with two outlaws chatting outside. The outlaws happened to be our bounties and confessing their crimes when we approached. Try as he might though, it still ended in a brawl. Both of these enemies were tougher than nails and took an enormous amount of punching to deal with. Cap focused on the fast-moving, sword-wielding rogue first, using charge to knock him off his feet and then wailing on him with punches. He pulled off 2 stun combinations on Dario, but then Coda jumped in to protect his partner. But it was too little too late, and Cap did manage to take Dario down shortly after. The crew then took turns knocking the little guy Coda off his feet with charges or purple bombs, and managed to take him out too. As the night began, Cap made his way toward the Shark's Teeth region of Shatterscarp in search of a campsite, but all he found were Dream Thralls and a Svefhead out in the wild. The Dream Thralls were very dangerous though, especially these tougher ones that swarmed Cap and unleashed huge combinations on him. Cap approached with a new plan and a little more essence in the tank, using a godlike sneak attack and his thorn attack to deal with the swarmer early, making space to deal with the other enemies. With no camp to be found, the crew traveled back to one that they knew of for some rest, and then headed back out to Shark's Teeth in search of yet more experience. At the barricaded entrance to Shark's Teeth, an Amawa called us over and asked us for some help delivering supplies to 2 people holed up in a tower set up to defend against Dream Thralls. Cap was always willing to help out, so he agreed. The experience will just be a bonus. A few steps into Shark's Teeth, though, proved perilous with several very tough enemies to fight. Cap and crew sprinted away right into another group of enemies, but these ones weren't quite so intimidating, mostly because there were fewer of them. However, Yatsley had already been taken down, so all the damage was up to Cap. He quickly squished some bugs and then very slowly whittled down a skeleton fighter with a shield. It took forever. Another few steps and Cap and crew ran into another ambush, but just sprinted on through as fast as possible, right to the tower that they were searching for. Finding the tower granted a whopping 3,300 experience for some reason, which was plenty to hit our next milestone, level 15. At level 15, like all multiples of 5, we now get 2 ability points. For our first, we dropped it into Retribution for a nice get hit and hit back harder ability. With some skill, this means we can purposely take a hit that Giada will heal off for us and then dish out 70% of that damage back to the enemy. Hopefully this will give us some rather chunky punches occasionally, and will make the damage we take much more worth it. For our second point, we took our 3rd rank of Finesse, which will grant our punches a total of 50% more damage. Not bad. Only 1 more level to upgrade our meat hammers to Superb. At the tower, we met a wounded Adirian soldier who was scouting out the area but was injured by the traps laid for the Dream Thralls. The soldier asked us to find whoever set the traps and deal with it because the traps had already killed several other soldiers. Cap is on it. Just around the corner, Cap started seeing all the traps, and they really were everywhere. He ran through a few and even took a couple of hits getting slammed in the chest by a big log, but he shrugged it off. A little billy goating later though, and he managed to climb his way to the top of the tower. a little too easily, honestly. He found a journal entry from someone who seemed to be the ones laying the traps. They were seeking a method of weaponizing the traps against Adirans, not just against dream thralls. Weaponizing as in asking someone to deliver supplies up a tower that's trapped to kill people? Great. This is a trap at the top of a tower that is already filled with traps. Just before the final ladder to the top, Cap overheard the villain's plans.
I finished the last of the traps, love. And if they don't, we'll still make Adir bleed for it.
These two that he heard talking offered a pretty scathing critique of empires, but Cap managed to talk them down. Finishing the quest rewarded Cap with another huge burst of experience, another 3,300, pushing him so close to level 16 that a few fights would be enough to push him over the edge. From the top of the tower, Cap scouted around, looking at the major landmarks in the area and deciding on a plan. He then jumped off the tower into a little, conveniently placed pool. Cap then sprinted out of Shark's Teeth, hopefully with Giada and Yahtzee following. They eventually caught up while Cap was reading yet another suicide note from a person with the Dream Scourge. Shatterscarp really has been ravaged by this plague. There has to be a way to stop its spread. Nearby, Cap found the gate to Galawain's tusks, as well as Nakukubel, the ruins we were looking for with Yahtzee that are still locked down by Ringgrim. Cap then noticed some strange arrows pointing their way through the desert and decided to follow them out of curiosity until the heights momentarily got the better of him. Twice. Third try though, Cap managed to jump and then charge across the large gap and land with only a little scream. Our valiant hero then fought his way through several spiders, only to find a sort of drug dealer's hideout. Our new dealer friend though died right in front of us from a treatable spider bite, but we somehow ended up with the drugs for free. On our way out of there, Giada said,
"Hear me out. What if we throw caution to the wind, sample the goods, and never speak of this again? Interested?"
"Yeah, Giada, great idea. Let's try the Dream Scourge plague drugs that could immediately infect us all, and then we're all dead." Fantastic idea. Just down the cliff, Cap found a group of Zarips and beetles. He punched and thorned and purple bombed his way through the fight for enough experience to hit our next major milestone, level 16. We used our new ability point to immediately upgrade our meat hammers to superb with the 3rd rank of Iron Fist, meaning we are ready to take on whatever else Shatterscarp can throw at us. With our attribute point, we put this one into perception again for a tad more crit chance in preparation for another rank of devastating criticals in the future. A little nighttime exploring later, Cap and crew found some treasure through a door that just needed a little power. We found the Stormsworn bow, which, while useless this time around the wheel, maybe another time it would be one of the best possible weapons. The next day, Cap took his upgraded fists for a test run, starting with clearing out those enemies all around the tower and much of Shark's Teeth. With the upgraded fist, these skeletons dropped without much fanfare, though just one level ago they would have felt like they were breaking Cap's fists with their faces. Some enemies were still tough, of course. This ambush, for example, was still quite the bear, with archers hitting very hard, and even worse, these little ash blights walloping Cap with melee attacks if he stayed close for too long, but if he was too far, they would throw out fireballs, several in a row. A very great many punches later, the ambush was cleared and Cap found his prize, an item that Kai had asked for. While clobbering his way through Shark's Teeth, Cap found one of his 5 bounties, an undead Captain Tago with a big ol' sword and a hurricane-like spinning attack that would knock Cap off his feet. On his first try, Cap actually killed Captain Tago, but a skeleton chanter came out of the ground and complicated things greatly. And then, somehow some giant beetles sent Cap packing. The second attempt was more efficient. Cap used some food buffs and then worked on killing all of the extra guys that were distracting Giada and Yahtzee the whole fight with the first try. The skeleton chanter was the most difficult, of course, but it did go down. Then he took out the beetles while Captain Tago was still mostly full health. Once the fight was down to just the captain, Cap and Yahtzee took turns knocking him down with charges and purple bombs, making the fight much simpler. Our hero eventually used a big stun combination for a bunch of damage, and from there it was just a few more punches to collect our bounty. Just beyond Captain Tago Street, we found another fight, of course. But more importantly, we found the Archmage's Lair, a campsite and the 4th piece of Whale's Totem. This piece granting 5% critical chance, which could be very nice if we choose to use it. Even though the Archmage's Lair was right there, Cap and crew decided to go find the Thirdborn Captain's crew member first nearby. Kawa told us that his friends had all been turned into dream thralls at their farm here in Shark's Teeth.
Please.
A bunch of punches later, the basic dream thralls were down and Cap used a thorn to explode some barrels that the last one was standing next to. It was sad taking out this guy's fungal dead friends, but exploding barrels with a thorn will never not be satisfying. Cap then convinced Kawa to go back to Thirdborn to meet the captain, but he told us that the captain always wanted them dead. Weird. I really hope that this is just a drink together and nothing nefarious. The crew then went searching for this abandoned mine where the last member of the crew was hiding out. After a bunch of running around, Cap finally spotted this light in a cave thanks to the nighttime lighting. Inside, he found a bunch of beetles that needed exterminating. After squashing the bugs, he climbed up the mine to find a makeshift campsite with the final crew member inside. She was the most reluctant to attend the meeting and also said,
"He's been trying to kill me for years."
She said she didn't want to attend, and Cap didn't try too hard to convince her, now a little convinced himself that this may have been a bad idea all along. Elsewhere in the mine, Cap found another piece of star metal like the piece he found at Emerald Stair. Star metal knuckles would be fantastic, wouldn't they? Now we have a piece for each hand, if we can find someone to make them for us. Cap then ran back to Thirdborn, which was basically across the street, and brought drinks up to the captain and his 2 crew members. He toasted to the new times ahead and healing wounds, but
To the healing of wounds.
Kawa kind of just died, and no one seemed bothered by it. He was just dead on the floor right there, and they didn't really care.
Oh my. What's happened to Koa?
Absolutely bizarre, but I'm glad What's-Her-Face didn't come over here with us now. While shopping after witnessing a murder, Cap found the drug dealer's twin brother and gave him the sketchy package and informed him of his brother's death. He did not seem that bothered by it. What a great brother. Maybe we also shouldn't have given the Dream Thrall drugs to a random guy. I don't know. Cap also turned in his currently collected bounties and finished his shopping spree before packing it in for the night. While shopping, Cap did pick up a new pair of gloves, a pretty big upgrade over his previous ones. The Thirdborn gloves give a whopping +3 to our might stat, which will increase our damage by a good deal. The gloves also boost power attack damage when we decided to spend some stamina on them, which is fantastic. The next day, Cap, Yatsli, and Giada set out to go bounty hunting. The first target was a Zarb leader on a crag in the Sand Sea. On the way, the team found yet more Dream Thralls, but with our new Iron Fists, they weren't too bad to take down. There were quite a few of them though. The reward for finishing these guys off was a nice bit of treasure in a locked chest, the Whisper of Exile's Wand. Cap couldn't convince Giada or Yatsli to use it, but maybe another time the wheel, it'll be better. After another Dream Thrall battle, Cap and crew found the Zarb camp and started their assault. Cap snuck in and then focused on the High Priest, wailing on it while directing Yatsli to drop a bomb on it. The burst of damage took the High Priest down quickly and freed us to focus on other enemies. Cap went toe-to-toe with a very aggressive Bulwark and took a few big hits, but Giada healed him right up as he took down the remaining 2 enemies on the ground level. A short climb up the crag later, Cap ate a big snack of buff food and then jumped into battle against several Zarbs, and one really big one and aggressive one. Because there was a priest, Cap began the fight trying to focus the wiggly dinosaur down first, but the priest kept running away. Eventually, he managed to get it down and then realized he could use charge to knock the little guys off the plateau. 2 little Zarbs later, Cap charged the big guy and knocked him back too, realizing that he'd be able to charge the big Zarb off the cliff as well, making the fight so much easier. 10 seconds later, after wailing on him to keep the bounty in place at the edge of the cliff, Cap explosively charged and sent the chief flying to its doom with just a little satisfaction. Up above at the very peak of the crag, Cap found another memory of Sapodal's to explore. This ancient memory was about a godlike woman of Sapodal's like us named Nimana, a hermit watcher of the Akita long before. She was there for a cataclysmic event that Sapodal triggered with nothing but a flinch. Sapodal's power was such that a flinch was enough to destroy and maybe even cause whatever made Shatterscarp into this desert. This memory granted us 10% additional stamina, a welcome buff, but the memory itself was a little concerning. Next, the team traveled back to the far side of Shatterscarp for their next bounty, a pod of Dream Thralls we had run from before. This fight was challenging, but not terrible. Cap began by charging and bursting down the priest so that she wouldn't heal the rest of the Dream Thralls before transitioning to wail on anything in front of him. Giada and Yatsli held their own quite well, never going down during the fight, even though Cap was incapacitated once. No particular enemy in this group was all that bad thanks to our upgraded fists, which was nice though. That same day, Cap and crew made their way back to the front door of Nakukubel for the final bounty, an earthen blight named Moi Piki. This was a challenging but fun fight for Cap because every charge sent Moi Piki flying some 10 feet in the air. The way he imagined the fight the first time though did not go well, with Moi Piki getting the best of him. The second attempt was much better, charging Moi Piki almost on cooldown and launching him through the air. Cap even managed to launch, stun, and then combo Moi while the blight was still in the air somehow, which felt incredible. Soon after, the blight and beetles were dealt with, and Cap was free to turn in the bounties at last. The reward for turning these in were the bracers of bloodletting, a reasonably good set of gloves, but not quite as good for us as the Thirdborn gloves. But they do look quite nice, so Cap put them on. The next day, Cap took Kai out of the camp for a quick trip to his friend's memorial. It was an emotional time, but Kai seemed to be healing from all that had happened with his friend, though I suspect he isn't quite done with this story just yet. A night's sleep later, Cap, Yatsli, and Giada were finally ready to meet Ringgrim, hopefully without violent conflict, but you never know. At the end of a long and cold tunnel of snow, the team found themselves on the receiving end of a parable being taught by an apparition of Ringgrim. However, a clever bit of paying attention to the environment and platforming with Cap's ability to charge let Cap skip some of the story, finding a heart of Adra that looked important. A short fight with a bunch of skeletons and an annoying ash blight later, Yatsli read a book from Ringgrim filling us in on more details of the parable. Placing the first piece of the statue in the statue rewarded us with enough experience for level 17 and a new ability point. We dropped this ability point into Critical Strike, granting us an additional 10% critical chance, which will be yet another nice damage upgrade for our fists. Looking around some more, Cap noticed another path that seemed suspicious. Another charge allowed Cap to find the room of another statue piece without any hassle, but this one was guarded by a villager, apparently from the parable that we're learning from.
I can't have it. I don't want to die. Don't take the Adra piece from me. I'll do anything. Please.
Taking this Adra piece did not feel good, but Ringgrim's message seems to be, sacrificing one for many is sensible, at least sometimes. That is an enormously hard call to make though. Cap could not find a sneaky way to get to the final piece of Adra, so he had to fight his way there through a brutal group of skeletons and shades. He took out the enemies along the path without too much issue, just a lot of punches as usual and a little bit of kiting to make room because this spider kept summoning more spiders that were a huge pain. Up above, Cap found the final piece of the statue and used it to complete the parable, which was enough for Ringgrim to grant Cap and crew an audience. In the audience chamber though, Ringgrim wanted to finish her reading. She couldn't be bothered by us, and so she told us,
"Amuse yourself with these skeletons while I finish this paragraph."
Rude as hell, man, but fine. What followed was a multiple wave fight against skeletons and shades that summoned other shades and little spiders and more. It was chaotic, with multiple priests healing during the different waves, fighters blocking punch after punch, spiders biting and jumping and leaping. But in the end, the team rallied and managed to take out the undead and spiders without anyone going down, so I guess it couldn't have been that bad. Thankfully, Ringgrim did finish her reading and speak with us before she killed us. She questioned us about the parable and then explained it.
The village would have lived if they had chosen to sacrifice one dying soul for the good of many living ones.
She also told us about her very interesting philosophy.
What matters is that our lives buy the world more history, more beauty, more time to create interesting things. Do you understand?
Little concerning. After some more back and forth and teaching the Archmage about Sapadal, which she didn't know about before, Ringgrim granted us passage into Nakukubel because Cap can open it, even though Ringgrim failed to. She even offered Yatsli her own grimoire to dispel the magic, which seemed quite exciting. The next day, before setting off for Nakukubel, Cap followed the bridge from the campsite until he found himself in a Park Runin cache with a puzzle to solve. How to open this gate. After a lot of fussing around and running around to get the elevator where he needed it when he needed it, Cap found these levers on the 3rd floor of the cache. One of them, he's not sure which, opening the gate to the shiny loot, which was shiny indeed. In this cache, Cap found Scald's Brigandine, a new heavy armor with 25% damage reduction, 20% stamina regeneration, and the ability to regenerate health if Cap's companions are downed. That is phenomenal and well worth sacrificing 20% movement speed to use, especially before taking on whatever dangers lurk in Nakukubel. One trek across Shatterscarp later, the crew arrived at Nakukubel ready to take on the Dream Thralls, and there were many Dream Thralls. The fight started out easy, but quickly became overwhelming, especially upstairs at the front door where there were many powerful Dream Thralls. Cap had a very hard time imagining how to beat these guys, until finally, he decided to use a bunch of food buffs and hold nothing back. The extra damage and damage reduction from Magram's Blessing, 20% each, did just the trick, allowing Cap to deal enough damage to take out the big threats like the Wizard quickly before they could blast Cap with 8 balls of lightning in a row. Turns out, performance-enhancing foods do indeed enhance your performance. Once the Dream Thralls were dead and the group chatted for a moment, Yatsley opened the barrier and the crew entered Nakukubel. Inside, Cap and crew were immediately assaulted by Dream Thralls, though how they got in, I have no idea. Maybe they were in here before Ringgrim put up a barrier? Though Cap did almost die once, Thorn of Sapidol and Furious Punches were enough to clear the room. Beyond the door at the end of the hall was a giant Adra stone with vines all around. Scattered around the stone were 3 doors, and in front of one of them...
That's a ghost. That's an Akedan ghost.
The ghost taught us about the Magfolk, the giant robot contraptions that we've occasionally seen around Godless Ruins, and how they slaughtered the Akedans, and how Sapidol may have harmed or killed Akedans while defending against the Magfolk. The ghost also challenged us to complete a trial of strength, which of course meant trial by brutal combat with ancient undead, because why would a trial of strength just be simple weightlifting? The first room was a frantic, chaotic fight. Cap ran back and forth around the room, charging and sprinting and punching and blocking, trying to help his companions with the skeletons attacking them. Even though Cap took a quick incapacitation early on in the fight, the rest of the first room went well and no one else went down. So, first room down. How many more? A hallway with a pool in it later, Cap encountered the next group of undead and a lava blight which was just as annoying as an ash blight. He took it down with a series of charges and punches and then cleaned up the remaining 2 enemies. The next room was significantly more challenging though. Cap again had a very hard time imagining how to take on all these enemies. There were a smattering of rangers that peppered him with arrows from across the room, a few Dream Thralls that exploded, and of course the dreaded Chanter that spawns in very aggressive, powerful minions that put a lot of pressure on our hero. And then, a priest crawled out of the wall and healed everything, making them way more dangerous. After a few different variants of this fight played out in his head, Cap finally gave in once more and used another Magram's Blessing Mushroom to boost damage and damage reduction by 20%. That and a few other buffs, along with very high pressure on the more dangerous enemies, made the fight go a lot smoother. Taking out the Chanter before the minions could really pressure Cap made a huge difference and freed up the space to take down the last 2 waves of enemies, especially the Priest, Wizard, and the Ruinous Blight. Finishing up the last wave granted a bunch of experience, a very cool mace for another trip around the wheel, and access to a new ghost and another trial. Tanusas the ghost told us,
"The waters boiled, the land opened, the rivers rose, and we drowned."
Sapidol defended themselves, saying,
"We broke the pain. We died with them. How did we do this?"
The ghost then challenged us to a trial of wisdom, which was actually just a deadly obstacle course, instead of like a puzzle. Simple enough, but Cap did have a little trouble making it past this one. Eventually, Cap thought hard enough and made it with a long charge. A little bit of platforming, fire, and poison darts later, and the trial of the mine was complete. The reward this time being an excellent shield upgrade, Namana's Ward. Namana's Ward grants 5% damage reduction against spirits, which is nice because those things suck to fight. But it also gives temporary health when we successfully parry or land a timed block. That means if we timed block, we get free stun on enemies from the parry ability point, and some extra health sustain, which is incredible. This might be our main new shield. We are sacrificing some stamina, but our armor gives us much better stamina regen, so I think that should be fine. We were also rewarded with enough experience to hit level 18. With our new ability point, we took the first rank in toughness because we haven't been having a good time imagining fights lately. A little extra health should help. For our attribute point, we put a point into constitution for the same reason. All that remained to do was the final trial. A leap of faith into a pool of water. We screamed, but we lived. Beyond the final door, the 3 Akedan ghosts grouped up and confronted our hero. They said,
"Now, lay your life down. We will all rest quietly. The gardener will not be disturbed."
These godlikes of Sabadal turned their backs on their god. With a stroke of luck or genius, though, Cap convinced one of them not to attack, but that still left 2 ranged damage dealers to fight. The beginning of the fight started strong. Cap wailed on the mage over and over. He charged and shield bashed until he built up a stun and unleashed a powerful combination attack. A few punches later, the ghost died again, but the ranger was still up. Luckily, a similar tactic worked. Charge, punch, bomb, stun, combo, kill. Overall, not a bad fight. Cap could do this all day. With the ghost dispatch, the team found an Akedan device which Yatsley theorized was the map, but would need a moment to interpret it. In the meantime, Sabadal asked for an audience at the big Adra stone. On the way to the Adra, Cap found a new ring upgrade, the Ranga's Clarity, which grants +2 intellect and +2 perception. Though not a strict upgrade over evading melee damage 7% of the time from the Valian ring, the extra essence and resistance from intellect and extra crit chance from perception is very welcome. I think we gained more than we lost by changing rings. At the Adra Stone, Cap spoke with Sabadal about the betrayal of the Tabaru Sinakis, the Akedan godlikes. Cap questioned Sabadal about their claims, but found only that Sabadal was traumatized by the war with the Magfolk. Sabadal claimed,
"We did not want them to die. We loved them. We tried. The spirits lie. We loved them most. They twist our words. Let us offer you another gift, a seedling of power."
Cap accepted the offer of power from Sabadal, but is now questioning his relationship with the god, just a little bit. There was no time to think, though. Basically, as soon as he woke up from his chat with Sabadal, Dream Thralls were flooding through the walls, enough of them that Cap and crew had to flee as fast as possible. Cap revived his team and sprinted for the door. Once outside, the crew took out some spiders and a few Dream Thralls before leaping across a large gap to fight a few more spiders. These spiders were a little tougher, almost taking Cap out, but the team prevailed. Only a few more Dream Thralls stood between the team and freedom. Except, around the corner were Ludwin, the Stilgarrote, and Ringgrim all waiting at the entrance. Before getting trapped in conversation with the Archmage of Terror and a Death Guard, Cap looked left and imagined what would happen if he charged across the chasm. He could certainly make the distance, but no. He couldn't approach this confrontation from another angle. He had to face it head on. The conversation that followed was more harrowing than any threat Cap had faced thus far. Ludwin and Ringgrim were arguing about how to deal with Nakukubel, the Adra Stone, and the certified horde of Dream Thralls there. Ludwin argued she and the Steel Garrote should use cannons to destroy the ruin and kill all of the Dream Thralls in order to strike back at the Dream Scourge and at Sabadal. Ringgrim, on the other hand, argued with her parable that the Adra Stone at the center of Nakukubel should be severed from the other Adra, which will prevent the spread of the Dream Scourge in Shatterscarp altogether. The Dream Thralls already there would remain, but no more would be made. But there was a catch to both solutions. With Ludwin's solution, the Dream Scourge would continue spreading in Shatterscarp, even though a lot of Dream Thralls would be taken out all at once. If the Dream Scourge keeps spreading, there is no telling how many more people will be infected and what the cost will be. And as Ludwin said, this would be a great offense to Sabadal, and maybe that isn't such a good idea considering just the power of a flinch. With Ringgrim's solution, the catch is that it would take an enormous amount of essence, which will be drawn at random from people throughout Shatterscarp. People would drop dead, drained of their essence entirely, sacrificed at random to sever the Adra. But no more would be infected. A painless death, but involuntary sacrifices. The decision was gut-wrenching. Cap was not prepared for such a lose-lose situation with this horrible plague. But all of the suicide notes that he'd found over the past several days ultimately drove his choice. The The plague itself was far more horrible than fighting off the dream thralls. He asked Yatsley and Ringgrim to sever the Adra. Yatsley, Giada, and Sabadal all thought this was the right call, but Cap wasn't so sure. When the deed was done, there were dead steel garrote right next to them, and Cap had a horrible feeling about Thirdborn. That night at camp, Kai chewed Cap out for his decision, and Cap snapped back. Both choices meant death. In our dreams that night, Sabadal reflected on the deaths of the Akita that they had caused, neither taking responsibility for the deaths nor denying their role in them. Maybe this is not dissimilar to the deaths that Cap just caused. Attempting to save lives in both cases resulted in taking others, even innocent lives that deserved to be lived. There was no good winning. Everyone's hands were bloody. The next day, Thirdborn was in grieving shambles. The worst of it was Leofled, rocking herself on her porch. Our friend Gladwine, who was bright and cheery with a new lease on life here in Thirdborn, Leofled's husband, was dead. Because of Cap. Damn. Temerity proceeded to tear us a new one for our choice. Rage and grief just pouring from her voice.
What did you do, Envoy? I know you're involved somehow. I hope your fucking decisions haunt you forever. Get out of my sight, Envoy.
After picking up the last-minute supplies from around town, Cap and crew headed for Gallowayne's Tusks, where our new old map says the garden is. Hopefully there we can find the source and solution to this dreadful plague. Solving this problem is quickly becoming too much to bear. Cap will see you all in the next excuse. When Cap and crew arrived in Gallowayne's Tusks, a barren landscape lay before them, but that didn't stop Cap from immediately exploring. The crew turned left and ran straight into some deadly mushrooms and beetles in an Akhitan ruin just next to the large Pargoon gate to the land. Fighting the beetles was simple: a punch here, a thorn of Sapidal there, and these enemies went down, no problem. The real problem was the cave that Cap ran into a short while later with a ridiculously difficult fight against beetles with carapaces harder than anything Cap has ever punched to date. Cap sensed a fight coming in the room with the giant dead Leviathan, so he ate a little bit of food on his way in, but nothing jumped out at him. At the back of the cave, he squashed some more beetles with Giada's healing for support and Yahtzee's chaos magic for some added damage. We took a look at some lava and then plunged back into the cave where a gargantuan beetle the size of a small tow truck named Mater crawled out of the ground. Cap began the fight by blocking and dodging the beetle's leaping attack and following up with 2 thorns of Sapidal, staying mostly defensive. He did manage to get in a few punches, but took a few hits in the process. After Cap got a strong stun combination and Mater called on some friends to help him out, and these 2 were brutally strong. We made the mistake of spreading his damage out over several beetles instead of focusing down one additional enemy at a time to reduce the amount of incoming pressure on Cap. A short while later, Cap got. But that was just the beginning. The next attempt played out a little better. Cap used some buff food and led with a relentless attack on the tow truck, but again, after a stun combination, Mater summoned more beetles. Cap focused a little better this time, taking out a few of the additional enemies with the Thorn of Sapidal, but the result was still the same. Cap and crew went down. The next time Cap imagined this fight, it went about the same. But the time after that, the crew was within striking distance of ending Mater and leaving only the final wave of beetles to contend with. Cap even managed to get a strong combination and to create some distance with the Thorn of Sapidal, but while the giant beetle plunged its horn into the ground for an area of effect attack, we thought we had an opening to charge the beetle and stagger it out of its attack. We charged with about half of our health left, and we didn't land the stagger. Mater erupted from the ground, and Cap was dead. In his imagination, of course. 2 imagined attempts later, Cap and crew finally took Mater down. To do so, they had to fight off wave after wave of extra beetles. Cap had to time his charges and dodges to avoid the big area of effect attacks Mater used. We had to wail with punch after punch on the tougher-than-tough beetle. And right at the end, Cap was incapacitated, almost costing him his life. but one final charge and punch combo stunned the beetle, letting Cap finish Mater off with a furious combination and a final uppercut. After that, it was pretty trivial to finish off the remaining two beetles, even though they took quite a few punches. They just weren't high enough pressure to be much of a threat after that. It looks like the fights in Galawain's Tusks are going to be as brutal as the landscape. Back at the Adra Stone near the gate, Cap and crew took their first rest after a hard-won battle. Cap upgraded his armor a bit, chatted with the team where Yatsley and Giada both trained Cap on a couple of attributes. Yatsley taught Cap about finding traps quicker, granting us a +2 to our perception attribute, which is a nice critical chance buff. Giada, on the other hand, helped us sharpen our wits, granting us +2 intellect and a little additional essence. Nothing crazy, but quite nice for a little rest. That same night, we took our turn as the teacher and helped Sapadal learn a little more about kith and betrayal. The next day, the crew resumed their adventure, this time venturing towards civilization and a Pargroon tower. At the tower, a warden commented that we have features like Nandru.
The sentries were right about you. You have the same features as our Nandru.
Founder of Solace Keep. We have a statue of him there. You both share similar features.
Radut also needed a favor from us. Some outcast wardens marked out their own claim in the land, and Cap offered to help. Amalia, another warden, took her own team to leave the Tusks, which is not allowed according to their culture. Cap offered to chat with Amalia to defuse the situation. The chat with Radut and accepting the quest granted us a chunk of experience, enough to hit level 19. With our fresh ability point, we took a second rank in devastating criticals, adding another chunk of critical damage to our punches. We then stocked up on some more potions because of how tough everything is here, and picked up a treasure map leading to someone's loyal shield. Sounds like it could be worth looking into. Just down the road, we met another warden also in need of a favor. A woman this warden fancies was with a trade caravan that has gone missing. She was worried about her and asked us to search. Cap set off looking and soon found, you wouldn't believe it, beetles, next to a destroyed caravan with a note on the sale of goods to the wardens. Cap took out the beetles and kept looking. He found the rest of the caravan, all seemingly dead. Yatsley and Giada pointed out,
Those wagon tracks look like they're headed east.
Following the tracks, Cap found a final cart down a hill and a cave nearby with the dwarven woman the warden was looking for. She was captured by an ogre, who Cap threatened to release the woman.
Please, don't joke. It hurts to laugh.
Cap questioned the ogre about destroying the caravan, and it actually turns out that the caravan attacked the ogre first when he approached. The ogre had a lung condition that he wanted to buy medicine for, so instead of killing Grokor, Cap decided to help out the ogre and maybe make an ally instead of hating the man like his countrymen had done. So the crew set out to look for the recipe and its ingredients. After punching a bunch of crates, Cap found other supplies, but not the recipe, because he had already found it and it was in his pack. Once he read it, he set out looking for the specific ingredients. First, some moss that grows near the roots of red trees. While searching, he ran into a camp of Zarups with two priests. The first priest went down easy, as did the second, but the rest of the camp managed to get the better of our hero through very high pressure ranged and melee enemies. The next attempt was no attempt at all, and Cap actually found the moss he was looking for just behind the ogre's cave. No need to fight the Zarups at all. Of course, that didn't stop him from doing so. Cap started this time with the first couple of enemies at the entrance to the camp and quickly dispatched a few before they could be healed. Cap then ran deeper into the camp and bursted down a spear thrower before the priest could even heal him. By the time that was done though, Cap had to run right into the thick of battle several times to take down the wiggly priest. Once that priest was down, Cap went toe-to-toe with the big stick-wielding war chief and took him out with a series of punches while dodging his attacks. Up next, Cap turned his attention to the other Zarup with the big stick, the Sorcerer. He was a little squishier and went down quickly. Cap and crew cleaned up the final enemies and then searched the camp for loot, finding a strangled Adra to cleanse with Sapadal's help. Cap also found evidence of Animancer dwarves here, which was pretty interesting. After cleansing the Adra, Cap couldn't help but think about how beautiful this harsh landscape really is. Elsewhere near the camp, Cap found a jar of gunpowder snuff, the second ingredient in the cure of Molderlong. Kind of a hardcore ingredient though. While looking for the calcified beetle scuttle, the third ingredient, Cap ran into another Zara Wartruth and quickly took him out and then headed for some beetles he saw near the caravan's resting place. These beetles were big and there were a lot of them. But thankfully, Cap found the final ingredient outside of their horde. He grabbed it and ran back to the ogre's camp. Turning over the ingredients the ogre worked out, Gillian was freed and the ogre was grateful.
You made a friend. Today is a good day.
Finishing the quest granted a huge boost of over 9,000 experience, which was enough for level 20. As a multiple of 5, we received 2 ability points this level. We imagined using the first point to take a rank in Flurry of Blows, a new essence costing ability that will maximize our attack speed. The second we put into another rank of Harvest Essence to help out with our essence sustain. With our fresh new powers, Cap and crew ran back to that big group of beetles just over the ridge to take them out. Surely, with Flurry of Blows active, they wouldn't stand a chance. Right? Nope. 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 After imagining his death to the beetles several times, Cap thought it wise to try a new tactic. These fights in Galawain's Tusk so far were brutal with so many enemies that maybe what we really needed was some area of effect damage and a little more health. Cap put his new ability points into the first rank of Clear Out, an ability that lets Cap spin like a hurricane to deal damage and knock over enemies, clearing out the room and making space to reposition or deal more damage. That can be used to knock over bosses and regular enemies alike. For the second point, we put that one into a second rank of Toughness for some extra hit points because Essence doesn't mean crap if you're dead. With the better ability points in place, the team assembled one more time against the beetles. This time, the fight went much better, though it was still frantic. Cap led with a stealth attack, which quickly took out the first beetle, and then ran into the middle of the fray, used a Clear Out to knock over and then take out a collar. But soon, more enemies showed up and put the pressure on our hero. He ran into the fray again and spun like the wind, knocking over several enemies, dealing good damage. His companions went down though, and the final group of enemies was the highest pressure of them all, incapacitating Cap and making reviving his companions very difficult. Cap did manage to revive Yatsley though, and her damage was very important to finishing the battle. Very tough fight, but Clear Out was clearly very powerful and much better for this build than Flurry of Blows. To the east toward the giant glowing tree in the distance, we found a group of Steel Garrote at a broken Akedan bridge. The Steel Garrote we talked to seemed to be at the very beginning stages of the Dream Scourge. We talked him down, but
my people won't.
What followed was a battle with several Steel Garrote scattered around their camp. They didn't pose much of a threat though, so it was pretty quick. Unfortunately, though Sapidol cleared roots from the bridge, it ended way before we could reach the garden. We did find a journal from Nandru though, about accessing the garden. After a quick chat with our companions and a concept of a plan forward, we got a nice chunk of XP and went exploring. Somewhere around the edge of the Acid Sea, we found a path a little down the cliff and followed it all the way to some massive tree roots, kind of like the ones that Sapidol just cleared for us. We couldn't make our way under the roots, but we did manage to use a charge to make our way on top, from which we climbed over them. On the other side of the roots, we found a fancy glowing door that wouldn't open, and a fast travel waypoint. We walked on thin air, which was kinda neat, but surely this isn't the door to the garden, right?
Closer.
Right?
We have waited so long.
Back up the cliff, Cap and crew stumbled upon a house in the suburbs of Solace with a bit of a bone problem. The fight wasn't too bad though, and the dead were sent to a second death. To the northwest, the crew found a Pargroon outcast who needed some help freeing up the land from Zarabs. Cap is always willing to help out, so he snuck into the farm and woke up a sleeping sorcerer. A priest then knocked Cap on his butt, but was ultimately killed. He then ran around frantically punching and slapping until some flames from the sorcerer got the better of him because we didn't prioritize the right enemy. The next attempt started much stronger with a sneak attack on the priest, and then we focused on the tanky champion. But the sorcerer still took Cap down. New plan. Cap took down the priest again and went straight for the sorcerer with Yatsley's help. After that, it was light work to take out the melee enemies and the stalkers throwing their spears. A quick bite to eat later, the crew snuck into the next part of the farm and started the fight with a classic charge. The burst damage from charge, Yatsley's bomb, and a few punches was enough to take out the collar before she could summon anything dangerous, and before the priest could heal her. Next, we took out the priest, and then finally the little guys and the war chief with his big stick. But then, a ruinous blight came out to play, so Cap sent it flying a few times, which was pretty fun. The ghostly rocks weren't too hard to finish off though, only a few more enemies to clear out before clearing the farm. This next battle had a few bears, a priest, and a sorcerer. As Cap learned, he started with the priest and finished it off with the clear out, then asked Yatsley to drop a bomb on the sorcerer while Cap punched and then killed the sorcerer with the Thorn of Sapidol. Soon, all that remained were a few bears, and let's face it, the bear's claws have nothing on Cap's paws. With the farm cleared out, Cap looted everything and then let the outcast man know. He rewarded us with some gold and a nice 1200 experience. After a long day of fighting and exploring, Cap and crew took a much needed rest at the camp next to the farms. The next day, Cap and crew ran to the Warden Tower to visit our friend Galeen and the other merchant to buy some much needed potions. All the fights in the Tusks have eaten through our supply of essence potions especially, and clear out is only adding to the essence sustain problems. The trip back to the tower cost a whole day though, so the following day, Cap took Marius and Yatsley with him to Solace. In the tower just next to Solace, we found a dwarf imprisoned for grave robbing. This dwarf happened to be one of Sansa's map makers from back in Paradise, so we convinced the guard to let him go and sent him back to Sansa. At the gate to Solace, Marius helped us get access to the keep, his home city. It was not a warm welcome though. Marius had abandoned this place without telling anyone goodbye. He essentially banished himself, and coming back was offensive. Inside Solace, the greetings were all rather shocked, but not unwelcoming. Cap began his first visit to Solace with what anyone would, shopping. Cap bought some food from the kitchen, and then picked up 5 bounties from around the land. Turns out that beetle that we ran into on our first day in the Tusks was a bounty, so we turned it in for a little experience and gold. Upstairs, we bought some more health and essence potions, helped a worker find her lost hammer like a helpful citizen, and met an engineer who needed us to search out an old Akedan ruin and clear the aqueduct to give the keep better access to fresh water. Up an elevator, we then met with the Council of Solace, which was only 2 members with no apparent tie-breaking vote. Sounds like a very ineffective version of government to me. A long and mostly unhelpful conversation about the Steel Garrote and a path to the garden later with no resolution or direction from it. We earned enough experience for level 21. For the newest ability point, we took our final major milestone, the 4th rank of Iron Fists, making our meat hammers legendary quality, able to bop even the toughest foes in the living lands, no problem. We also gained another attribute point and put this one into Constitution for additional health. We then set back off to explore when one of the 2 counselors, Kostya, interrupted us. He told us that he disagreed with Mihala's Parkrunan traditional views. Kostya seemed a bit subordinate to Mihala, but cunning in the background. Kostya knew that the Steel Garrote were in the Tusks at Mount Forja and suggested that we go there to find out about another route to the garden. He also suggested surrendering Solace Keep to the Steel Garrote and Adir. We immediately tried ratting him out to Mihala, but she wouldn't believe us. Back downstairs, we found a smith who was willing and able to work with star metal like the 2 fragments that we found in Emerald Stair and Shatterscarp. But unfortunately, he wouldn't make us star metal knuckles. He did make us a neat gun and a sword though, but those are useless this time around the wheel. Outside the keep, Cap, Yatsley, and Marius set out to go bounty hunting. With our newly upgraded fists, Cap thought he was ready to take on whatever the Tusks could throw at him. Turns out, he was wrong, and he had to run from the very first bounty he tried taking on, a pair of ogres with giant clubs. They absolutely clobbered our hero, especially once the priest and a bunch of skeleton archers and such came out of the ground to help them out. Cap will have to come back to these guys in the future because all of the food in the world wouldn't give him enough juice to take these guys on. Around the cliff from the ogres, however, was another bounty that Cap was determined to take on, a powerful Dream Thrall bear that was almost as powerful as the ogres. This fight started strong with a good sneak attack and a volley of attacks, but that seemed to awaken some shadows and skeletons that made everything so much harder. Without Giada in the party, Marius and Yatsley soon went down, which did help Cap's health regeneration, thanks to his armor, while he recovered. He did manage to get Marius up and stun the bear, but there were so many extra enemies pressuring them both that Marius went down again. So much for that. Cap did take an incapacitation after Marius went down the second time, but he did manage to take out the bear. However, the pressure from a shielded skeleton and the two archers somehow was still too high without his companions, and Cap ended up dead in this imagined fight. On the second attempt, the fight played out much the same with a powerful early set of attacks, but this time, Cap focused on the shades and skeletons after they crawled out of the ground. This strategy worked in previous fights, so surely it could work again. After taking a few of the skeletons down, Cap tried to focus on the Wraith and Shadows, but found them very hard to focus on because they would crowd around with several attacks at once. Eventually, Cap did manage to put the Wraith to rest, which took the Shadows with it, leaving only a few skeletons and the bear left. Another quick pick-me-up for Marius and Yahtzee later, the companions helped Cap unleash a barrage of attacks on the final skeleton warrior and the white Dreamcrawl bear. A great many punches later, and a few painful hits from the bear to boot, Urval now was down, and that was a hell of a fight with a worthy reward. On a body in the cave, Cap found a unique necklace called the Cartographer's Companion that granted Cap +3 to perception like his previous necklace, but it also added on +2 dexterity, making his attacks and actions faster. It was just a straight upgrade. Perfect. Just a few steps from the cave, Cap saw a giant statue of Nandru, the famous dwarf guy in Solace, and thought it might have something to do with the treasure map that he saw before, but it did not, so he moved on toward the aqueducts and another bounty. However, while running there, he saw a rather phallic-looking tower that did match the one on the tower map, so he went exploring and billy-goating his way up into the tower, where he found an altar, a door, and a secret button that opened that door thanks to the markings on the treasure map. Through the door was an inner room and the best shield in the Living Lands, Time's Tarnish. This shield has two excellent enchantments. The first is 20% chance to refill stamina when blocking, which makes blocking much more efficient. But the second is even better, a 10% chance to avoid melee damage. Given how hard some of these melee damage hits can be, and how much melee pressure we get on Cap, that is incredible. It's a straight upgrade to our old faithful unflinching duty from back in Paradise, which gave us a 5% chance, and we haven't been making good enough use of the temporary hit points from Nimana's ward to use that over Time's Tarnish. So this is going to be our new shield. Thank you to whoever hid this. We are sure to make good use of it. Cap and crew then set out for the aqueducts and the next bounty. Inside the beautiful fungus, moss, and grass-infested glade tucked up against the mountains, Cap found a Delumgan with a dwarven prisoner. To save the prisoner, Cap offered to help the Delumgan with the source of rot poisoning the water here.
Do this, and I shall release these vermin to scurry back to their nest.
A little further into the slumbering fields, Cap snuck up on some small and cute fun guys and gave them a beating of a lifetime. Even further in though, Cap found his next bounty, a big old mushroom boy called the Spore King. He and his fungal friends were a menace to deal with because they seemed to have beetle pets, which also hit quite hard. Once Cap took out several of the beetles though, he moved closer to the Spore King and revived both Marius and Yahtzee. But the fungal fighters remained. Cap took a swig of grog and a couple potions to top up his health and then worked on taking out the remaining enemies. Once it was only the Spore King remaining though, Cap found he could be charged off a cliff, and then he charged him into the poisoned water, killing him from over half health and making the fight so much easier. One clearing over, Cap had the pleasure to punch one mushroom so hard and so high that it burned up into the atmosphere, and then he launched another one some 15 yards away into the poisoned river. So satisfying. With the enemies dispatched, Cap and crew explored a little more and found a still somewhat functioning magfolk who spoke with the voice of Wotica. Apparently Wotica, the queen of the gods and the god of Adir specifically, is the one who sent the magfolk that wiped out the Akedans, and is the one who imprisoned Sapadal. It is Wotica who Sapadal has feared most during all this, and Wotica who is ultimately responsible for the dream scourge that has plagued the Living Lands. After all, it wasn't until the Steel Garrote set foot on the land that the dream scourge appeared. Cap sided with Sapadal on the conversation and struck the magfolk, ending it. With the magfolk dead, the water of the slumbering fields was purified once more, maybe confirming that it is Wotica's abuse of Sapadal causing the problems in the Living Lands. Cap searched the newly cleared up water for some loot, took out a few more mushrooms, and then told the now saved dwarf lady to shove off. Cap would not kill the Delumgan, only clear the aqueduct so that they could collect water elsewhere. Completing this quest gave us a healthy chunk of experience, putting us well on our way to level 22. Elsewhere in the slumbering fields, Cap found an ancient memory past a few spiders and ghosts. This memory was of a Tabaru Sinakis named Maru. The Tusks were apparently a lush and fertile land around a volcano. Maru was a leader in the city and the Tusks at the time that they built the aqueduct, but the aqueduct and the destruction of nature that came with its construction was offensive to Sapadal. Sapadal felt the pain of an ancient tree felled for the sake of the aqueduct, and as a reaction, perhaps without knowing what they did, caused the volcano to erupt and make the land as it is now. The bonus from completing this memory was very nice though, and it was a 10% increase to our damage. Outside of the slumbering fields, Cap and crew continued on helping the Tusks by taking out some more mushrooms and finding the outcast Warden outpost that Warden Radut asked us to speak with a few days ago. Amalia was not happy to see us though, but in her words were a challenge to play a little capture the flag. If we can take the banners from her camps, maybe she'll talk to us again. So off Cap set to loot some outcast camps and avoid killing anyone while stealing their banners like his days back at summer camp. The first camp was easy. He missed a charge, but found some loot because of it, and then quickly clambered up to grab the banner. At the second camp, Marius offered some helpful advice.
This looks like a good way to get ourselves killed. Any chance we can sneak in through the back?
Sneaking around back was pretty easy, just a couple Zarebs to take out and a convenient ladder to get into the camp. A short sprint later, Cap had pissed off the entire camp, looted a chest, grabbed the banner, and bailed, all without issue. The little elevator trick that he tried, though, that didn't work, unfortunately. It would have been cool, though. With both banners in hand, Cap and crew ran back to Amalia's camp. Somewhere along the way, no clue where, though, or how, we did actually hit level 22, and we didn't know it, but we eventually figured it out. We used our newest ability point to take a second rank of clear out, which means that we now spin twice, dealing more area of effect damage. Very helpful. Back in Amalia's camp, she was impressed with our capture the flag skills and led us into her camp for a chat. After a chat, we reached a resolution where the outcasts won't attack anymore, and the wardens in the towers won't attack either. The outcasts will stay in the Tusks and make a way of life for themselves. In return for resolving the tensions between Radut and Amalia, we received this shiny loot in a chest, the Berserker Scale, a nice piece of kit that we won't be using. However, the Berserker boots that we found in the other camp turned out to be an incredible upgrade, offering 100% increased stamina regeneration, which let us put our old faithful Valian breastplate back on, making us quicker around the battlefield. The Berserker boots are very unlikely to be outclassed by anything else. Soon, we reported back in to Warden Radut and received a nice chunk of experience in return. We also received a nice ring that won't be making an appearance this time around the wheel. After a hard 2 days of work, the crew made camp for the night, upgraded some gear, and got some rest. In the morning, the crew set out for another crack at the 2 ogre bounty on the Sallow Steps. Cap ate some food, snuck in, and charged when the sneaking failed. The crew opened up the fight, dumping their abilities for some easy damage. When the skeletons spawned in shortly after, Cap sprinted over and used clear out to get some easy damage in, but the priest survived and required a charge to take down. Cap then focused on the additional enemies like in previous fights, because he's learning, finding that method very effective. Soon, the first wave of skeletons were down, leaving the team available to put the hurt on the big ogres. Cap split his damage between the 2 big enemies, but he did manage to get 2 stun combinations in on Krusta, but far sooner than Cap would have liked, another wave of skeletons spawned. Thankfully, there wasn't a priest, but there were archers at a decent range that took Cap a moment to realize they were even there. Once we noticed them, Cap charged to bring the fight to them. A charge or 2 later, and Krusta was ready for yet another combo, but that only summoned more skeletons. Cap used clear out and did clear them out, opening Krusta up to more damage, and yet another stun combination, but yet again, more skeletons, and this time there was a wizard, barbarian, and several others. Cap made the mistake of tunnel visioning on Krusta, leaving the additional skeletons alone trying to take out the last bit of health, but both companions went down with some 7 to 10 enemies left standing. Krusta did go down, and Cap managed to get Giada back up, but the earlier incapacitation that he took made him vulnerable. He frantically got Yatsli up, almost dying in the process, and then used another clear out after killing up. After getting Giada up a second time, Cap took some serious pressure but managed to take out the big sword-wielding barbarian. Only a few adds were left, and a bomb from Yahtzee managed to take them out. A moment later, Cap stunned the remaining ogre and went to get Giada up for a third time, with one enemy stunned and only 2 skeletons left. But the skeletons landed a wombo combo of an arrow and a stab to the head at the same time. Cap went down hard in his imagination after a brutal 9-minute battle in his mind. The real attempt played out much the same, except this time Cap focused a little harder and took out all of the additional skeletons as fast as possible while letting Yahtzee and Giada handle the ogres a good bit of the time. Things went a lot smoother that way, but they were still quite stressful. This time, Cap noticed as soon as the third wave of skeletons crawled out of the ground, and he ran straight for them, quickly taking out the archers and the weaker skeletons. That made things much easier, as did Yahtzee and Giada tanking the ogres like badasses. The fourth wave of skeletons came soon after a stun combo on Krusta though, so we had to quickly switch targets, but like always, we didn't and we almost paid the price for it. Luckily, Krusta did go down again, but there were yet again a ton of skeletons to deal with. Cap used a clear out to make room to get Yahtzee up, then was almost incapacitated while he got Giada back up. Giada healed the team, and then Cap ran around frantically drinking potions and getting incapacitated while Giada was down. A clear out made enough room to revive Giada, and Cap took a wallop to the face, almost killing him. He sprinted away and started working on the archers, who once again almost took him down. Without a plan and with nothing but panic in his soul, Cap defended his companions as best as he could, but didn't focus on the skeletons hard enough, making this whole thing so much harder than it needed to be. Conveniently, a clear out stunned the remaining ogre, letting him get Giada up, then he ran back and almost died to the archers again. He dodged and dodged and dodged and dodged until he had an angle to charge. He took out the 2 archers at last and then focused the final ogre while Giada held the skeleton barbarian's attention. Finally, with one last stun combination, Cap killed the big ogre and soon after killed the barbarian, wailing on Giada. That fight was insane, and Cap felt like he could take on Wotica herself after that one. In the same ruins, Cap managed to open a door, behind which he found a unique light armor that would add an absurd amount of damage to his attacks. 50% extra critical damage with his fists on top of 25% extra damage. The cost? He would take some 60% total extra damage compared to when he was wearing the Valiant breastplate. That cost would be massive and would make fights like the one he just did almost impossible given how many hits he actually took. Cool enchantments, but no thanks. Another time. Before heading back out for the next and last bounty, Cap ran back to Solace Keep to turn in the current ones and see if there were any spare supplies to pick up. There wasn't much, so Cap and crew set back out into the tusks, headed north from Solace. On the road, Cap ran into a novice monk who said,
"My brothers, my fellow monks, they changed into monsters before my eyes. They're tearing everything apart."
Looks like the Dream Scourge is at the Living Archives, and Cap offered to help, of course. Down the road, Cap found a fight with some Zarups, but decided to just slink away undetected, only to find a much larger camp not far away. He quickly dispatched the first few couple of Zarups, and then moved on to the greater camp full of little dinosaur people and beetles. Across the bridge, he knocked the dangerous sorcerer off the cliff and did the same to a slasher. The sorcerer, though, clung to a ledge under the bridge like a troll, but he wasn't a threat anymore. Finishing the fight granted Cap enough experience for level 23. With our new ability point, we took the 3rd rank of Clear Out, maxing out the ability ensuring that we can deal a lot of damage to multiple enemies at once. Deeper into the camp, Cap found a high priest in a perfect spot to be knocked off a cliff, so he snuck up and stabbed a little guy before charging and yeeting the dino off the cliff. A few feet over, he did the same thing to another little Zarup. While exploring, Cap charged across a river of lava to find a spider cave ready for squashing. Walking into the cave had a predictable, but still jump-scary spider attack from some Dream Thrall spiders. Cap took a quick incapacitation from their onslaught, but with Yahtzee and Giada's help was able to tank their attacks momentarily until he ran out of stamina and essence. Giada then went down, and soon after, Cap did too. The second attempt went much better. Cap worked on baiting the spiders out of the cave to make a little more room for activities, and to line them up for a nice Thorn of Sapadal. He still took an incapacitation from the big spider's onslaught, but managed to tough it out and whittle them down for a while, either tanking their attacks or healing them off. Until he couldn't do that any longer. Not even a clear out saved us. On the third attempt, Cap drank a little grog, buffed up his health with an ale, and then topped up his health and essence with some food. He then led the fight with an accelerated clear out, baited the spiders outside in a big group, and then used another clear out to take out the little guys. We then lined up another thorn and knocked over a third spider with a charge while Giada and Yatsley worked on the other two. Soon the final spider was down and the cave was finally free to explore. At the very back of the cave, Cap found a Pargroon cache and an Akedan ruin with a piece of the region's god totem, with a nice but not really that crazy effect on it. Just a little movement speed for killing enemies. The cache, on the other hand, had an incredible piece of kit, our new best armor, the Sentinel Mail. The Sentinel Mail gives 30% damage reduction to all elemental damage and a 10% chance to avoid range damage. It also has the same normal damage reduction as our Valiant armor, and it looks heroic AF to boot. It is perfect. Just outside the cache, Cap put the armor to the test against some lava blights, and it worked like a charm. We took hits from these guys so much better than normal, and the burning status didn't absolutely one-shot our hero like it used to. Back on the road, Cap overlooked the Primordial Depths, scouting it out for the next day's adventure. A night of sleep later, Cap and crew sprinted around all the shops once more looking for supplies, desperate for essence potions especially. Cap bought everything he could find, but what he could find was only a few potions. That will have to do. The crew then ventured into the Primordial Depths in search of the Dreamthrall-infested archive and the final bounty. The crew started by clearing out the Zarup overrun tower on the road, which rewarded Cap with a nice ring that would boost area of effect damage by 20%. Great in theory, but Cap decided to put a different ring on instead, the Sand's Shroud, which would stack with his armor to give him 20% chance to avoid range damage. Down the cliff, Cap found himself in another battle with beetles and Zarups. The first wave of enemies went down without any fanfare, but the second turned out to be pretty high pressure with two slashers attacking in a staggered pattern and a third throwing spears. A charge knocked them off their feet though, and that took care of them. Up the cliff, Cap took a wombo combo to the back of the head though, or so he imagined. Cap quickly cleared out the tower, equipped a different ring this time, granting him 20% increased area of effect damage, completely forgetting the plan to equip the Sand Shroud. He then snuck back into battle against the beetles and Zarups. This time, he didn't piss off the entire camp at once, but was a little more tactical. He leapt across the chasm and shoved a Zarup off the cliff and followed up with another charge, knocking another off a cliff. He manually took out the blights and then circled around the main encampment, taking out Zarups and beetles along the way. Nearby, he took a break from the combat to explore this island of outcast Pargroon and found a set of gloves that looked very drippy. But when he talked to the outcast wardens, it turned out they'd used their dead friend as a trap and wanted to rob and kill us. Handily, Cap's reputation among the outcasts prevailed though, and he was free to leave without violence. Ignoring the majority of the Zarup camp, Cap ventured further into the Primordial Depths and started running into Dream Thralls and Undead. Nothing a few punches and Yatsley bombs couldn't take care of though. He did find a group of Zarups and Undead at war, which was interesting. Unfortunately, as soon as they saw him, they focused all of their attention on the team, so Cap had to put them all down. Soon, Cap found the archives with the Dream Thralls and a blessed merchant with several potions in stock. Between the potions for sale and the ones Cap found on the way to the archive, Cap now had some 15 or more essence potions. Plenty for many fights ahead. Elder Grigor, the leader of the archives, asked us for some aid preserving some of the books, and Cap agreed to help. He did a little parkour to get inside, snuck up on a Dream Thrall, and started things off with a sneak attack and Thorn of Sapidol like he often does. He took out the priest, but was left with two barbarians to deal with. A clear out and a huge number of accelerated punches later, and they were finally down. Upstairs at the tower of the archive, Cap found a way to get the drop on some Dream Thralls. He used a charge to cross the space, trying for the pillar, but he missed. He still got the drop though, he didn't scream, and he started throwing hands and blocking attacks. After he took out the priest, he focused on the wizard and then worked his way through the melee enemies that were wailing on Giada and Yatsley. The flashy entrance didn't make the fight quicker, but it did make it a little more fun, and the courtyard did hold one of the books he was looking for, so it was a win-win. Downstairs in a more proper courtyard, Cap found more dream thralls in a group. He used a clear out to start the fight, but almost went down to a dream thrall that exploded when he attacked. The extra damage from the explosion did make the fight quicker though, so that was a bonus. Deeper still into the archive, Cap found a suspicious novice who wanted us to turn over one of the books that the Elder was looking for. Giada said it best.
Take it from me. No one should be that desperate to get their hands on a book.
We will not be giving her the book. No way. Beyond the doors, we found another fight with some angry dream thralls, but it was mostly standard fare. With the thralls dead, the entire archive was clear of them, and Cap grabbed the book of the before. He returned the books to the Elder for a little gold and experience, satisfied with saving the day and the history of these people, at least a little bit. From the archives, Cap and crew set out west through the wastes to find their final bounty in Galawain's tusks. The final bounty looked like it was supposed to be located in this crater, but there were some blights and not the dream thrall that we were expecting. So Cap just started by clearing the blights. After the blights were dead, Cap looked closer at the crater and found a piece of star metal in it. Too bad that still can't be made into star metal knuckles, but he grabbed it anyway and out crawled Destool, the powerful dream thrall bounty. Destool was tough, and he tried to put up a good fight, but the crew was just too powerful with punch after punch, bomb after bomb, a clear out, and a stun combination. He went down quick. Poor guy, he must have been a menace before his fungal undeath. Nearby, Cap accidentally stuck into a prison and found an Animancer Pargruin being held. Cap chatted with the man, and turned out he had actually found this guy's journal back in the tower with the Zarips. And even before that, he found the Animancer ruins way back at the Strangled Adra. Having seen the possible benefits of Animancy and traveled with Giada for a while, Cap agreed to help this man get out of his prison. Cap went back to the guards out front, or rather he found the guards out front and wanted to talk to them, but approaching from behind seemed to just piss them off permanently. Cap sprinted away hoping to drop their aggression and then talk with them, but that did not work, even approaching from another direction. The guards attacked again, and the crew was forced to defend themselves. Key in hand, Cap let the outcast out of his cell, who then ran off to join the other outcasts with Amalia. Maybe he'll be able to help them grow some food to sustain themselves and give them a bit of a better life. The outcasts could even form their own city if it should work out. We can only hope. With the final bounty dead, Cap and crew traveled back to Solace to turn in the final trophy for a reward. The reward for finishing the final bounties was a ring granting 20% damage against enemies that we mostly won't be fighting anymore. You know, since the bounties are done. For maybe the last time, Cap set out into the wastes, this time to find Ludwin and the Steel Garrote. There was a gate with a relatively low clearance that Cap wanted to try breaching, thinking it'd be a back way into the mines. After a few minutes of trying, he eventually climbed onto a tree and charged right over the top and unbarred the door for his companions. This was indeed a back way into the mines, and it left only a few Garrote in the team's way of the main door. Cap led with a big Thorn of Sapodol from range to blow up a barrel and take one Garrote out. The other Garrote then rushed the team, and Cap responded with a clear out, softening the enemies up. Yatsli and Giada made light work of the remaining Garrote, and Cap took the final one out with another Thorn of Sapodol. Entering the mine granted just enough experience to hit yet another level, level 24, granting us another ability point and an attribute point. For the ability point, Cap took another rank of Harvest Essence to help out with our Essence Sustain because these potions have been so hard to come by. With our attribute point, we put the final point into Perception, bringing our base up to 3, but with a 7-point bonus, we are actually at 10, giving us quite a lot of critical chance. Inside the mine, we managed to do a bit of parkour and make it up to this obvious ledge. But dark magic of some sort prevented us from going toward the light. We did find a pretty cool warhammer up there though. Not useful this time, but still cool. Past a barred gate, we did manage to sneak past some of the Garrote, but ultimately we didn't have a choice but to fight. Cap tried unsuccessfully to knock one of the Garrote into the lava, but had to clobber him instead. The rest of the fight was pretty quick and trivial though. Trying to explore a ledge by slacklining on a chain, Cap stepped in some lava. But our newest armor made it hurt a lot less than it would have, and that was pretty nice. Deeper into the cave, Cap saved a dwarf man from a beefcake of a Steel Garrote with a battle axe. Deeper still, Cap snuck right up on the Steel Garrote mage and just waited. Patiently. until he couldn't anymore. Then he alerted the entire room and started clobbering. Soon, several steel garrote were down, which attracted some explosive beetles, but nothing too crazy. Past some more lava and camp supplies, Cap and crew found and discussed the garrote's battle plans to march on Solace and eventually the garden. Outside of the cave, just beyond the map of their battle plans, at the top of Mount Fior, our hero found Ludwin putting some wardens to death. But when Ludwin planted a flag for Wotica and the Living Lands, well, Sapadol was having none of it.
One law. One true God.
No! Never again!
The Dream Scourge is Sapadol's doing. Their reaction against the Steel Garrote and Wodica's presence on the land. But Yatsli and Giada said it best.
Use whatever brain is left in your skull. Mortals have been here for centuries. It's only gotten worse since you arrived.
Well, this god was quite pleasant up until your Steel Garrote came in and started setting things on fire.
Following his companion's advice, Cap decided to set Sapadol free. Ludwin did not like that decision. She must have been pretty confident about winning the following battle though, because Ludwin allowed Cap enough time to eat a feast of buff food. As soon as he finished, Ludwin and a group of Dream Thralls attacked. The Dream Thralls mostly attacked Ludwin, but not always, so Cap ran around attacking them and Ludwin in turn. But Ludwin made a terrible mistake. She was able to be charged and knocked down, and purple bombs could knock her down too. She also seemed to be able to teleport short distances, and one of those teleports was to the edge of a cliff. We saw our opportunity, and we took it. We charged and sent Ludwin sliding down the side of the mountain to her second death. Maybe her third death? She is a death card. She may have died 1,000 times, I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, the Dream Thralls now didn't have any Wodican to be mad at, so they turned all of their attention on Cap and the team. Things almost went poorly, but Cap did manage to survive by turtling up behind his shield, waiting for openings while his companions were knocked down. Eventually, he prevailed. After finishing the fight, Cap spoke with Sapadol through a nearby small Adra stone. Cap tried to calm Sapadol unsuccessfully. Sapadol seemed to claim that the plague is a consequence of their pain. Like a wounded animal, Sapadol has been lashing out of their prison as a reaction against Wodica's presence in the land once again. Cap felt Sapadol's pain and determined to free them from their prison. In return, Cap was given a new power, Seeds of Vengeance, which can both heal him and his companions and make dead bodies, not living ones, dead ones, into Dream Thralls. The crew then fought their way out of Mount Fior, which was now littered with Dream Thralls. Once out, they took a night's rest, determined to make it to Solace the next day to see if there was any damage from the volcano's activity. The next day, on the way to Solace, the crew ran into more Dream Thralls, this time Zarups and even some Pargroon. It was like the Pulse had turned so many people into Dream Thralls immediately. At the keep, Cap met with Mihala to find out what was going on. After a little explanation, Mihala finally believed us that Kostya was behind the Steel Garrote problem, and he knew a way into the garden. In the end, Cap offered to help out by chasing after Kostya into the depths of the keep to make sure that the lava sluice gates would be opened. Cap and crew ventured into the depths of Solace and found something unexpected. Beetles, okay, those are kind of expected, and Akedan ruins. The beetles were par for the course at this point, but the Akedan ruins were a little surprising. Solace was built on the ruins of the Akedans. Further into the cave complex, Cap found some more classic enemies, some undead. A little further on the path, our hero ran into this arena with a skeleton and a purple light. We thought the skeleton was named Sibelius, so he was probably going to be tough. Cap tried to sneak in, but was unsuccessful and was soon swarmed by many skeletons. Like so many fights before, Cap focused on the boss using charges, purple bombs, and a clear out to keep him knocked down and easier to take out. This was a good idea in this fight, unlike so many before, mostly because the boss was a wizard that could deal a lot of damage if left unchecked. The rest of the fight was wild after Sibelius was down though. We had to run in circles away from enemies to give ourselves enough room to take out other enemies and revive our companions. It did work out though, and we got to finish the fight in style by knocking these shadows off the cliff and into the lava. I don't know how floating things get knocked off a cliff, but They did. Just to the side of the arena with Sibelius, Cap saw a few more fights ahead and decided a death-defying charge across a chasm would be safer than fighting. With a jump, a leap, and a charge, he made it across, skipping a few of those fights. But on the bridge was another named skeleton just begging to be knocked into the lava. So we obliged. Eventually, we found ourselves leaping into a pool of water next to an Adra stone that glowed with a strange light. In the Adra, our hero talked not with Sapadal, but with Nandru, the founder of Solace. Surprisingly, shockingly, maybe not so shockingly given what we've learned about Sapadal, Nandru was actually unfaithful to his patron god, the same as ours. Nandru asked us to destroy Sapadal because of all the cataclysms that they had caused. All four of the past godlikes of Sapadal think we shouldn't release them from their prison. That is not good. Just beyond Nandru's Adra, Cap and crew finally met Kostya. Cap argued with Kostya, but that came to deadly blows because Kostya wanted to burn the keep down, while Cap agreed to save it. Cap led immediately with a clear out, and then when Kostya stood up, he immediately slammed him down the floor. When he stood up again, Cap charged one more time, giving Kostya the fiery fate that he wanted for the keep. The team quickly took out Kostya's guards and then opened the lava gates, saving the city. Up the ladder, just beyond the gate valves, Cap found himself at the fancy door that he found days ago, but this time, the door would open for him, leading the crew through a cave to the garden, Sapadal's prison and home. Before he did that though, Cap made a quick run to every merchant in the region, bought all of their essence and health potions up, because whatever lay in the garden was sure to be tough to take down. After sprinting back to the garden door, the crew ventured in and camped overnight in the cave. They chatted about their commitment to each other and the mission. After the little pep talk, the crew polished their gear and got some rest for the garden. It was going to be a big day. A few hours of sleep later, the crew woke up and platformed their way into the garden over some floating stones. The crew immediately set out exploring this strange environment, looking for supplies and finding many materials for last-minute upgrades to their gear. Along the way, Cap found evidence that an archmage had made it all the way to the garden. That discovery raised some undead, which the team promptly put back to sleep.
Chaotic ore. I always thought he was a myth.
Only a few steps away, the crew got into another fight. This time with the Dream Thrall Bear, of course, and Zarps. It seems to me that if the Zarps had wanted to, they could have solved this entire problem. Sapadal really should have had a Zarp godlike because they seem to be able to get everywhere they want, including the garden, without issue. A leap of faith into a pool of water later, Cap and crew found a campsite and explored around it. Cap used a charge to get to this ledge and found some fancy loot behind it. The Windwalker armor, which would be pretty strong another time around the wheel. It did look cool though, but it wasn't really Cap's vibe. Back near the camp, Cap went for a swim and found this little outlet, but couldn't get his fireballs to burn it from underwater. He'll have to approach this from another angle. Up a short climb and then down some stairs, Cap and Giada found a disturbing scene that looked a lot like Giada's parents' accident. Though disturbing indeed, Giada found some closure in the scene, having been able to speak with these odd plant people creatures. It turns out, Sapadal was the one who killed Giada's parents because Giada's mom and her phantasmal focus found Sapadal. But when Sapadal called out to them, the power transformed Giada's parents into creatures like this. It wasn't on purpose, and they weren't truly dead, but it was still heartbreaking. Giada did forgive Sapadal, though. It was an emotional scene.
Thank you, Giada. And thank you, Godlike, for bringing her all this way.
Cap found some more loot behind a hidden door in here, a necklace that would summon some skeletons to fight for us. Another time and another life, perhaps. Back at the Adra Stone, our hero opened a door and found another damaged Magvolk where Wodika spoke to Cap. Boudica insulted Sapadal, but also hinted that Sapadal is more powerful than any of the individual gods.
When even the collective fury of the real gods could only confine the sniveling creature to this wasteland.
Sapadal scares Boudica. That's good to know. A brief time exploring later, Cap and crew ran into not a broken magfolk, but just a damaged one, still fully capable of rending us limb from limb. Cap went toe-to-toe with it, while Giada and Yasli offered support and damage from afar. Cap punched, he blocked attacks, he dodged blue energy beams, he got knocked off his feet, but in the end, it was only one enemy, so the team took it out no problem. Beyond the magfolk, Cap found Marius at a scene with a bunch of dead bodies and apparently his best friend, or even his brother of some sort, appearing to him. Iancu told us that he was dead to the Dream Scourge, and then Marius and Iancu had a brotherly moment. Maybe this is what Marius had been avoiding, maybe for his entire life. After Marius' emotional moment, the team ventured deeper into the garden. We fought more spiders, undead, and even another individual damaged magfolk. But soon, a second magfolk joined that fight and made things much tougher. Cap focused on the first one while Yasli and Giada kept the second one occupied. Giada went down, but Yasli did a great job holding her own. Eventually, Cap got the first magfolk down and then managed to push the second one off a cliff. Man, I love cliffs. They are the best. If Cap could have a son, he would name his son Cliff, for sure. A little ways away, Cap found yet another emotional scene. This time, it was Kai's. Kai spent a moment here in front of his dead friend that he has been guilt-ridden over for years. Kai used the time to heal just a little more and offered some encouragement as we left.
I never thought I'd meet someone I respect the way I respected Tama. But you've made some tough calls, and you've kept your head and your heart in the right place. So whatever comes next, I'm with you until the end.
After running around trying to figure out where to go to next, Cap and crew eventually stumbled upon a strangled Adra here in the garden of all places. Sapadal begged for help against the infection, and Cap granted that help. Cleansing the Adra granted enough experience to hit level 26. With our newest ability point, Cap took the third and final rank of Critical Strike, granting another 5% critical chance and a small bump in overall damage. Below the strangled Adra, Cap found a brutal fight against a group of undead. There was a chanter, 2 rangers, and a shielded fighter that he could see, and probably more to come. Cap led with a charge against a ranger and quickly took it out. He then used a clear out and Yatsli's bomb on the chanter, taking out the small group. When he took out the next ranger though, a giant Dream Thrall bear came out of nowhere and almost mauled him to death. Soon, even more undead crawled out of the ground, and soon after that, another giant bear showed up. Cap frantically attacked what he could. First a wizard, then a monk, then finally a ranger. But when he went to fight the bear, a poorly managed block drained his stamina, and the bear took our hero out with a bite to the throat. The second attempt was much less frantic. Cap killed one enemy at a time, and even managed to push a ranger off a cliff with a clear out. But soon, it became just as frantic as last time, with enemies running away, a bear mauling Giada for fun, and undead absolutely everywhere. With more careful stamina management, however, the team eventually prevailed against all of the undead, and hopefully the rest of the Dream Thrall bears in the garden. Please, no more bears. Beyond the fight with the bears and skeletons, Cap found a door with another ancient memory behind it. Except this time, the memory was of Sapadal's, not another godlike. Sapadal told us of their loneliness in the garden, in their prison, and the war with Boudica and the magfolk. Cap encouraged Sapadal to overcome their past and to learn from their mistakes, which have cost the Living Lands much tragedy. Sapadal agreed to try their best.
We reach for the sky. We grow. We grow. We grow.
Participating in the memory though seemed to piss Boudica off because 2 damaged magfolk soon appeared. Cap sprinted away to try and stop their aggression, but was unsuccessful, mostly because Yatsli and Giada kept fighting them. Cap decided not to abandon his friends. He dropped back in and led with a clear out, and then tried baiting them close to the edge of the cliff. But his efforts were in vain. He could not knock them off the cliff as much as he tried. and eventually he made a mistake against them and was taken down. In his imagination, of course. The next attempt was no attempt at all. Cap and crew parkoured away right into some nice loot, the Wild Walker boots. We didn't use them, but they were nice. We weren't out of the woods yet though, because we soon found, you guessed it, another magvolk. But this one was fighting an undead. The crew almost sprinted away to let the two duke it out, but decided that the door was too intriguing. Cap fought the undead soldier to a second death and then focused on the magvolk, trying to push it off a cliff, and this time succeeding using a clear out. You gotta love Cliff, guys. He is the best. Beyond the intriguing door, Yahtzee found an Akedan library familiar to her from her dreams. Turns out, she was the librarian who kept this library in a past life. Yahtzee is the foremost Akedan scholar, and it turns out she really is the only one who can tell their story and keep them alive in some small way. Will she pursue her scholarly work or her internship with Ringgrim? Can she do both? After accidentally guilting Yahtzee into becoming a librarian instead of a terrifying wizard, the crew found an Adra stone to camp out at after a long and emotional day. The team all reflected on their emotional moments here in the garden, and Cap reflected on the journey here. He was a little scared of the decision ahead to free or destroy Sappadal. His mind was made up, but the decision was still nerve-wracking. What if he was wrong? The next morning, the crew woke up and approached a magically sealed gate, the first of Sappadal's prison walls. To open the gate, first they had to fight their way past some spiders and undead. That was easy enough thanks to Clear Out, Thorn of Sappadal, and a few charges. But next, they snuck past a pristine magvolk, only to find that they were going to need that magvolk's arm to open the gate. For some reason, the magvolk's arms are the keys to the gates. Cap ran back and helped his companions fight the machine, which could shoot lasers, spew fire, and of course, smack and stop. Oh, and for good measure, it could teleport too. But that was nothing in the face of Cap's fists and powers. Cap did take a few hits, of course. He was knocked on his butt a few times and was even incapacitated. But after just a few minutes, the magvolk was down and Cap ripped its arm off to open the gate.
Careful with that thing. It's a mind of its own.
With this first gate open, Sappadal seemed to summon Dream Thralls in to fight, and they distracted another pristine magvolk in the courtyard. The crew snuck by only to find undead and Dream Thralls fighting two pristine magvolk at the same time. The funny thing was, these undead and Dream Thrall spiders must have been wicked powerful. They were slowly damaging the magvolk and not taking any damage in return, possibly empowered by Sappadal, so Cap saw his opportunity and just waited. For the next several minutes, the team sat by watching the fight unfold. Better to let the dead risk a second death and the Dream Thrall spiders fight the magvolk than to risk our own lives, right? Eventually, though, the crew was spotted and the fight was on, but not before the magvolk were taken down to much less than half health. The Dream Thralls and undead really softened them up and made them trivial to finish off. Cap and crew killed them both, took out a wave of undead, and then ripped the arms off the magvolk to unlock Sappadal's prison. At long last, Cap met Sappadal face to face and freed the god after they repented. It is an odd position for a mortal to be in, to hold the fate of a god in their hands. After we freed Sapidal, they opened a portal for us to Paradise and found it under siege. Before that though, freeing Sapidal had earned us enough experience for level 27, so we put our next point into a second rank of Retribution. When we get hit, we're going to hit back even harder now. For our attribute point, we put a last point into Resolve. The crew regrouped after the garden and then spoke with several of our allies from the journey here. The most important of these allies was the group of leaders from the various cities, the Adiran Ambassador, the Governor of Fjord, Temerity of Thirdborn, and Mihala from Solace. Cap filled them in on freeing Sapidal, but the most important decision at hand was the plan for the Living Lands. In the words of the Ambassador,
"What will his representatives find when they arrive? A new colony? A budding grave room? Before you face Ludwig, you should know what you're fighting for. All of you must decide, together. But whatever you decide, understand, the days of the frontier are done. Adir will come. Indeed, we are already here."
What will be the political state of the Living Lands when Adiran reinforcements arrive? The options were plentiful. The Living Lands could become an Adiran colony, could become an Adiran vassal state. The Living Lands could unite as its own political unit, or Cap could betray everyone and side with Ludwig. Given the Steel Garrote's atrocities in the land, Cap's newfound loyalty and protectiveness of Sapidal the young god, and the host of allies advising him that living under Adiran rule would be the wrong play, Cap decided to join the rebels he had saved all those weeks ago after they killed him. Cap would be fighting for a united Living Lands with all of the new friends he had made along this journey. With a few last-minute preparations, Cap and crew charged into Paradise to help liberate it from Ludwig, the Steel Garrote, and Wodika. Along the way, he got to use his ultimate new power from Sapidal called Sapidal's Fury. The new power allowed Cap to summon several more godlike hands and use essence to lift and then crush enemies. The ability was immensely powerful, if a little essence hungry. Some of Cap's allies from the journey joined in the fight, like this ogre that he saved from the tusks. He did finish some of these fights in a more traditional fisticuffs manner, but he finished off many other groups of Steel Garrote with his new power. Clearing the guards at the southern gate granted Cap enough experience to hit level 28, the final level. We put our final ability point into a third rank of Harvest Essence to make sustaining this new Sapidal's Fury even easier. The crew then fought their way steadily through Paradise, taking out Garrote after Garrote with a classic mix of punches, charges, and of course, the classic plank and spanks that Cap was known for. Occasionally though, he did get to unleash Sapidal's Fury and take out several enemies at once, which was incredibly satisfying. All the while, it was Giada and Yasli at Cap's side helping him. These two had proved themselves powerful and faithful companions, and Cap wouldn't take many others into battle with him. Plus, a pocket healer like Giada is always incredible to have. One ally that Cap didn't expect to show up in this final stage was Cliff, who made one final appearance, taking out the Steel Garrote for us. Thanks, Cliff. After blitzing through the Steel Garrote, Cap, Giada, and Yasli found Ludwig waiting at the heart of the city. If Cap wasn't completely mistaken, this was the same square that he once died, killed by the Paradise rebels. How fitting. Like all villains, Ludwin wanted to talk before fighting. Cap threatened Ludwin unsuccessfully, but interestingly, Sapadal wanted Ludwin to surrender.
We would not welcome her death. There is still ample shade for her beneath our tree.
But Ludwin did not surrender. The battle for the Living Lands was here. Cap versus Ludwin. Sapadal versus Wodaka. Cap led immediately with a charge and found Ludwin could still be knocked off of her feet. She hadn't learned from her battle with our friend Cliff back at the mines in Galloway's Tusks, apparently. Cap spent the next minute or so punching and charging, bombing and punching to keep Ludwin off her feet until she went down hard again. But unfortunately, Wodaka resurrected her once again and with new powers. Ludwin burned and had a crown of Wodaka's fire above her head. Ludwin also leapt into the air, attacking Cap from afar, but she could still be knocked down by charges, clear-outs, and even Sapadal's fury. Soon, Cap managed to stun Ludwin and unleash a combination on her that dealt a powerful series of blows. Ludwin went down again soon after, and she begged for Wodaka's help.
Again! Wodaka! Help me! One last time!
Wodaka responded in kind, resurrecting Ludwin to full and even summoning 2 pristine magfolk to fight Cap. But they were less of a threat than ever thanks to Sapadal's fury, clear out, and a significant lack of smaller and more plentiful enemies to add pressure to Cap. Cap managed to take out both magfolk and then land another stun combination. Ludwin then summoned 2 more magfolk, which Cap mostly ignored. They seemed to move very slowly after Cap took Ludwin out for a 3rd time. Wodaka did bring her back, but only at half health, one last time. Cap then built up to one final and furious stun, and he killed Ludwin with a combination so devastating, she stayed dead. So can you beat Path of the Damned with only your fists? I don't know if you can, but Cap and I just did. Long live the Living Lands. Thank you so much everyone for watching this series. If you enjoyed it and want a super tangible way to support it, you can check out the merch link below, the coffee link in the description, or use super thanks which are enabled on the channel. I can't thank you enough for supporting this. It has been a lot of fun to make, even though it's taken me forever. So what's the plan for Avowed going forward? Well, I still love the game and I have really enjoyed making this series, so I want to make another one. But it's going to be a little while before it comes out. I've got a lot of projects on the books right now, so if you want to get notified, I would recommend joining my Discord. I will post about it when it's out. But I am really excited for the next character. Her name is Wanda Barkface, and she is an illiterate wizard. It's going to be great. Thanks again for watching, and if you want something else to listen to, maybe check out this 3-hour-long video of my RuneScape 3 progress series. Maybe put it on a loop? I don't know, just an idea. Until next time, I'll see you all in the next excuse, and stick around if you want to see how Cap's ending turned out. Long live the Living Lands.
Silence falls over Paradise, as though the city is holding its breath. Then you hear it, the ringing of a distant bell, the waving of banners, and cheers of victory. After a short and bloody conflict, the dust has finally begun to settle. You feel Sapadal close to your thoughts, stirring with interest. The god of the Living Lands is observing this moment, unfettered by confusion or fear. For the first time in centuries, they understand. The Paradise militia rallies to you, the outsider who defended them in their hour of need. Whatever happens next, you have won their confidence. You take a moment to reflect on the calm. Not so long ago, you arrived at these shores on a simple errand, which turned out to be anything but simple. The dream scourge is over, and the island has been cleansed of plague. A time of healing and mourning follows. People look to you for answers about the source of the affliction. You tell them the truth, how the plague came from a power beyond mortal understanding, and how it is finally at peace. Thanks to you, the Living Lands has escaped Adiran oppression. The free settlements unite under a common banner and begin the fraught process of negotiating new traditions and values. The Empire withdraws. The frontier remains wild, but not for long. Fugitives no more. The rebels of Paradis return to their home and to other free settlements, bringing their skills and secrets wherever needed. For once, they have a future. The refugees of Emerald Stair find a cold welcome in the city of Paradis. Animancy is frowned upon, but their knowledge of agriculture is highly valued. The first bountiful harvest improves relations. In time, the people of Emerald Stair return to their city of Fior Messiverno. Research yields new developments in the struggle against nature. Technology is shared among the united settlements. The Empire cannot get in the way of progress. For the people of Shatterscarp, independence is bittersweet. Those who cannot withstand the grief inflicted by Ringgrim's spell leave the settlements, vanishing into the wilderness. Those who remain find themselves forced to cooperate with others, often begrudgingly. With so many dead, the need to stave off hunger outweighs any distaste for certain trading partners. Solace Keep clings to its long-held isolation at first. But after mourning her friend Kostya, Mihala reluctantly deigns to open the doors of the fortress. Some dwarves greet newcomers with glee. Others still mutter darkly about outsiders. Mihala flounders in her earliest negotiations with the rest of the living lands, but slowly learns compromise. She develops a taste for Valian sweets. When Kai leaves the living lands, he is no longer running. For the first time in many years, he can face the future. He returns to Rauatai, committed to peace for his people, those he left in Rauatai, as well as those he found in the living lands. He joins the Ronganui's council, counterbalancing powerful voices of isolationism and hawkishness. It is a long and difficult battle, and he is happy to fight it. With his travels alongside the envoy complete, Marius is left directionless once again. Rather than disappearing into his cups, however, Marius leans on his time among his companions to give him the strength to re-enter society and find comfort in civilization. He establishes a route between Paradis and Thirdborn, guiding travelers between the two in return for money and supplies. And while he has a reputation for being aloof, he joins the campfires from time to time, sharing stories of his time with the envoy that most travelers believe are completely made up. Giada continues to improve as an animancer. She dedicates her work to the spiritual health of the living lands, nurturing instead of exploiting. Others follow her example, seeking her tutelage from lands far and wide. In the years to come, rumors spread of a secret society gathering in the wilderness, where animancers work in harmony with nature. The dream of Fior Messiverno lives on in her. No longer under the threat of imminent death, Yatsley returns to the animancers. Reunited with her beloved Quilici, she helps him and the animancers as they put their lives together after the attack on Fior Messiverno. Eventually, she even has something nice to say to Vidaro. As the days pass in contentment and relative peace, Yatsley is struck by the persistent feeling that something is missing. Though she still devotes herself to her studies of both the arcane and the godless, the restlessness never goes away. Freed from torment for the first time in centuries, Sapadal turns their prodigious curiosity to the people that shaped them. They observe the ways their people live, and they think deeply about what they see. Though they flinch away from moments of violence, and they grieve souls returned to them too soon, the rage that once shook cities to rubble no longer rules them. Instead, they come to you with questions. They want to understand. After a time, they begin, tentatively, to garden. Where they can, they improve the lives of Kith, and the suffering that troubled them is reduced, if never fully eradicated. Their grief compels them to love, and they love unreservedly, with the power of a god. Sapadal has questions about what happens tomorrow, and the day after. You do your best to keep them calm, until the voice in your head is little more than a polite whisper. After everything you've been through, you don't mind the company. The sounds of celebration pull you out of reverie. Many are waiting to greet you with open arms. You take a moment to catch your breath and savor it, because everything is about to change.